Chapter 581. What she said was extremely reasonable. Although she was a little aggressive, at least on the surface, she was fair. It was justifiable to let the officials of the Ministry of Justice decide everything. The onlookers also thought it was a good idea. Seeing that Xiao Wenru only had a maid to serve her, it was obvious that they couldn't go to the Ministry of Justice. Someone enthusiastically sent their old maids to go to the Ministry of Justice. Hearing that they were still going to the Ministry of Justice, the two old maids turned pale with fear and involuntarily looked at Shuqi with imploring eyes. Shuqi also panicked. Seeing that the two old maids kept looking at her, she hurriedly glared at them and then nodded her head gently and quietly. She indicated that they didn't have to be afraid and that she could handle everything by herself. Seeing Shuqi nod, the two old maids knew that they had nothing to worry about, so they relaxed and slumped to the ground. The first miss of Duke Xing's mansion? Chu Qing looked at Xiao Yenru and Xiao Wenru thoughtfully. He had heard some other meanings from their conversation just now, and his eyes fell on Xiao Yenru. It turned out that he had made a mistake. The person in front of him was the first Miss Xiao, who was indeed a famous beauty in the capital city. The rumors were right. Yes, you are? Xiao Yenru bowed sideways and said softly. Then she asked for Chu Qing's name for the first time, as if they had never met in private before. I'm Chu Qing. Chu Qing said softly. It turns out that you're Commandery Prince Qing. I'm sorry. Xiao Yenru bowed deeply again. Are you the fifth miss of Duke Xing's mansion? After receiving another bow from Xiao Yenru, Chu Qing turned to Xiao Wenru and asked with a smile, I made a slip of the tongue just now. I'm sorry, fifth miss. Xiao Wenru also bowed sideways, but everyone could tell that the fifth Miss Xiao was still angry with Chu Qing's words just now. Commandery Prince Qing, you're welcome. Xiao Wenru said lightly. Her watery eyes were full of coldness with a bit of charm, which made her eyes look unpredictable. Even this kind of lively charm made people feel distant and cold, but people couldn't help looking at her a few more times inexplicably. Very beautiful, very charming, but also very cold. The onlookers also came to their senses at this time. It turned out that the first Miss Xiao was the first beauty in the capital city, and the other one was the legendary fifth Miss Xiao who was extremely filial. She voluntarily went up the mountain to observe filial piety as soon as she recognized her ancestors. But why did they feel that there was something wrong now? Was she really the first beauty? Although only her eyes were revealed, it was obvious that the fifth miss was more outstanding. Everyone's gazes wandered between the two of them, and then they fell into deep thought. Is Miss Wu hurt? Chu Qing looked at Xiao Wenru holding Yu Jie's hand indifferently. Since she stood up, she had been holding Yu Jie's hand without moving. Fifth sister is really hurt. Is it serious? At this moment, Xiao Yenru seemed to have noticed Xiao Wenru's abnormality. She hurriedly said, walked to the other side of Xiao Wenru and wanted to help her up. However, Xiao Wenru pushed her gently and said, Big sister, I'm fine. I just sprained my ankle slightly. Can you walk? Xiao Yenru said with concern, as if she were really a good sister who sincerely cared about her younger sister. It doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. Big sister, you also sprained your ankle before, but you've recovered now, haven't you? Xiao Wenru said with a smile, and her eyes fell on Xiao Yenru's foot. Xiao Yenru had also said that she sprained her ankle before. I didn't sprain it badly. I've recovered now. Xiao Yenru almost forgot about it. Now that Xiao Wenru reminded her, she hurriedly covered it up and moved her foot gently to show that she was fine. First miss, you're really amazing. You were limping just now, but you've recovered now. Yu Jie praised with an envious look. The onlookers all focused their attention on the first Miss Xiao. On the one hand, it was because of her title as the first beauty. On the other hand, it was because of Yu Jie's words. The sprained ankle seemed to be quite serious. How could she recover in such a short time? When Xiao Yenru walked out just now, they saw clearly that she didn't sprain her ankle at all. Xiao Yenru hated her in her heart, but she couldn't show it on her face. She still smiled with a good temper, looked at a bench not far away, and said, Fifth sister, let me help you there to have a rest, okay? Thank you, big sister. There's no need. I'll just wait here. After the officials of the Ministry of Justice come and take her away, I'll go back. In the current situation, I can't leave even if I want to. Xiao Wanru said with a wry smile, secretly indicating that she was seriously injured. I'll ask my servant to keep an eye on you. If you really sprained your ankle, it's not good to stand like this. Chu Qing advised gently. A few more onlookers spoke. Xiao Wanru couldn't refuse their kindness, so she held Yujia's hand and slowly walked to the bench on one side. Although she walked very properly, she was still a little stiff and unnatural. It was obvious that she was really injured. The bench was not far away. Shuqi had gone over to wipe the bench with a handkerchief and then helped Yujia to help Xiao Wanru sit down. Xiao Yinru followed closely beside her. After Xiao Wanru sat down, she squatted down and seemed to want to see Xiao Wanru's injury, but Xiao Wanru stopped her and said, "Big sister, you can't. There are many people here. It's my fault. I'm too worried." Xiao Yinru stood up and stood beside Xiao Wanru with concern and gentleness in her eyes. When Chu Qing saw her expression, he increasingly felt that the first Miss Xiao, as her name suggested, was extremely beautiful. He rolled his eyes and came up with an idea. No matter whether it was Xiao Wanru who had written the paper asking him to come here or not, he could ignore it for the time being. He could bring it up when it was necessary. The two misses of Duke Xing's mansion, both the first miss and the fifth miss, were good. One of them had Duke Xing's mansion behind her, while the other had Wu and Great Elder Princess behind her. Both of them were what he needed. If he could have both of them speak up for him or have a relationship with them, it would be a rare good thing for his great cause. After making up his mind, he left the servant to look after the two old maids beside him and walked towards them, intending to make a good impression on them. Seeing Chu Qing coming over, Xiao Wanru leaned her head against Yujie, who was standing aside, and closed her eyes. It seemed that she was in so much pain that she didn't want to speak. In her current situation, it was normal for her to have no strength to speak. In such a cool weather, her white and tender forehead had been covered with sweat after just a few steps. It could be seen that her injury was really painful. Seeing Xiao Wanru lean her head against Yujie and close her eyes, Chu Qing turned to Xiao Yinru and said, "First miss, I've brought an Imperial physician here. Do you want to ask the Imperial physician to have a look at the fifth miss injury?" "I don't dare to trouble you, Commandery Prince Qing. Fifth sister and I have the ointment given by the Imperial Palace. It won't get in the way." Xiao Yinru refused softly and secretly cursed Commandery Prince Qing for being so ignorant. Who would want his Imperial physician? In this case, her ointment would be useless. "Well, if you need anything, just tell me. I'll stay in the Yuhui nunnery these days." Chu Qing also knew that he couldn't force them at this time, so he just expressed his sincerity. "Thank you, Commandery Prince Qing. I heard that you've been cured. Why do you still stay in the Yuhui nunnery?" Xiao Yinru didn't want him to talk about Xiao Wanru's injury again, so she immediately changed the topic in a soft voice. "My mother has not recovered from her injury. She needs to rest for a few days before she goes down the mountain," Chu Qing said with a vague smile. He was unwilling to talk about this topic. "Why is the first miss also on the mountain? I heard that only the fifth Miss Xiao is on the mountain." Xiao Yinru liked to talk about this topic because it could set off her virtuous reputation. "It's too lonely for my fifth sister to observe mourning alone on the mountain. I told my grandma that I'm willing to accompany her to observe mourning for eldest aunt and eldest uncle. The first miss is so kind," Chu Qing praised. "I don't deserve your praise, Your Highness. This is what I should do." Xiao Yinru said a little shyly, "Your Highness is kind. We have encountered such a big trouble, so we have to trouble you to explain it to us later." Xiao Yinru calmly dragged Chu Qing into the trouble. She really didn't want to get too involved with Qiuyu. Qiuyu was also a descendant of an aristocratic family, and they had interacted in the circle in the past. Xiao Yinru didn't want to hear the rumor that she was close to Qiuyu. She was going to enter the Imperial Palace, so how could such a rumor spread? It would be better if she could ask Chu Qing to help her. "It's not a big deal for me to serve you." Chu Qing happened to be looking for an opportunity to get close to them, so he certainly wouldn't refuse and nodded with a smile. One of them was willing to fight, while the other was willing to suffer. With a sense of closeness, they naturally became more and more affectionate and happy as they talked. They even forgot Xiao Wanru, who was leaning in Yujia's arms, and laughed softly from time to time. One was a handsome man, and the other was a miss, who was obviously a beauty even if she only showed her eyes. Standing together, they were very eye-catching. Xiao Wanru, Yujie, and Xiao Yenru's maid Shuqi, of course, became the background. No one would pay attention to these people who didn't move at all, as if they didn't exist at all. Although the bystanders were afraid of the two people's identities and did not come close, they were all looking at the two of them. No matter how they looked at it, they felt that although it was the first time they met, they had already taken a liking to each other. As they talked and laughed, they seemed to have forgotten the injured 5th Mississippi. The 5th Miss was really pitiful. It was obvious that the 1st Miss didn't take her seriously. Otherwise, how could she still laugh at this time? The maple leaves fell one by one on the two of them, which added a bit of beauty to the ground. They were more delicate than flowers, beautiful and elegant, as if they were a match made in heaven. One of them raised her head slightly, while the other lowered her head slightly. From time to time, they would smile sweetly, which was very pleasing to the eye. But when Qiuyu saw this scene, he was full of jealousy and even felt that his eyes hurt. He strode over the servant who was explaining to him, walked to the two people in a few steps, cupped his hands to Chu Qing, and said, "Greetings, Commandery Prince Qing." Chapter 582. Greetings. Qiuyu turned to Xiao Yenru without waiting for Chu Qing to return the salute. Seeing Xiao Yenru's eyes under the veil, he was stunned for a moment and felt that he might have mistaken her for someone else. He took a deep breath and said hesitantly, "Greetings, First Miss Xiao." Xiao Yenru didn't know that Qiuyu would mistake her for Xiao Wanru, who was wearing a veil. She immediately smiled, bowed sideways and said, "Your Excellency." Hearing Qiuyu's voice, Xiao Wanru slowly opened her eyes and met Qiuyu's extremely surprised eyes. She said in a low voice, "Your Excellency, I'm sorry that I can't greet you because of my injury." "It doesn't matter." Qiuyu stammered. He looked at Xiao Wanru and then at Xiao Yenru and was at a loss. Did he really make a mistake? He looked at Xiao Yenru and then at Xiao Wanru, and finally fixed his eyes on Xiao Yenru. He first heard of the first Miss Xiao's beauty and then fell in love with her. How could he fall in love with her just because he had mistaken her for someone else? The first Miss Xiao was his favorite. Of course, Commandery Prince Qing in front of him was really unpleasant to the eye. It seemed that he was also fawning over the first Miss Xiao, which was really annoying. Hearing that something happened to Xiao Yenru, Qiuyu put down his work and rushed over with his subordinates. At this moment his two subordinates had figured out the cause of the matter and came to report to Qiuyu. After Qiuyu's two subordinates finished reporting, Xiao Wanru said, "Your Excellency, can the Ministry of Justice handle this matter?" In front of the beauty he liked, Qiuyu certainly wouldn't say that it was a small matter and the Ministry of Justice wouldn't handle it. Qiuyu straightened his back, looked at Xiao Yenru, and said with a serious face, "Of course, the Ministry of Justice will handle this matter. First Miss, Fifth Miss, don't worry. I will interrogate these two old maids and find out who is behind them. I will never make you feel wronged." Yujie secretly curled her lips. She didn't see the first Miss feeling wronged. Of course, now that the two old maids had been sent to the Ministry of Justice, the first Miss seemed to feel wronged. "Thank you, Your Excellency," Xiao Wanru said softly. "Thank you, Your Excellency." Xiao Yenru bowed to him with a smile. Qiuyu waved his hand and asked his two subordinates to take the two old maids back for the record. He would check it when he came back. He didn't want to go back in such a hurry. He had tried to get close to Xiao Yenru, but Xiao Yenru seldom came out like Xiao Wanru. Now that he had such a good opportunity, of course, he would not let it go. "Did First Miss come out to admire the scenery? I happen to be free now. Why don't I accompany First Miss and Commandery Prince Qing?" Qiuyu said with a smile. No matter how unwilling he was, he had to mention Chu Qing. Otherwise, the first Miss Xiao, who had always been polite, would definitely not enjoy the scenery with him. Chu Qing was naturally happy that Qiuyu invited him. Right now, he didn't have anyone close to him in the imperial court. He also knew that it was not easy for him to win over his subordinates. However, no matter how difficult it was, he would not give up. Qiu was from the Ministry of Justice and had a good family background. It was a pleasant surprise that he could start with Qiu. He immediately agreed with a smile. Of course, he could tell that Qiu seemed to be interested in Xiao Yanru, so there was no need for him to compete with him. He was really not in a hurry to get a beauty. I can't do that. Fifth sister is injured. I can't leave. Xiao Yanru said with concern and fixed her eyes on Xiao Wanru again. She had hugged Chu Qing just now in order to save Chu Qing's face. It was really hard to tell what would happen in the future. If she could save Chu Qing's face, even if there was an accident in the future, she could keep it in her hands. However, she was unwilling to enjoy the scenery with Qiu and Chu Qing at this time. Although they were not a man and a woman in private, neither of them was a good partner in her heart. She didn't want to spread rumors about them. Big sister, go ahead. I feel much better after sitting for a while. I'm not in a hurry to go back now, so I can sit here for a while. Big sister, you can come here to see me after you come back. Just as she was about to refuse, Xiao Wanru raised her eyes and said, The fifth Miss's foot is a little injured. Let the fifth miss sit here for a while. First miss, you can take a look at the scenery for the fifth miss and tell her about it when you come back. It's rare to have such an opportunity. If you refuse me and Commandery Prince Qing and I will be sad. I'm going to try the case later. It's not easy for me to enjoy the scenery. Qiu said with a smile. Xiao Wanru's words helped him out of trouble. He immediately pretended to be joking and invited her again implicitly. Xiao Yanru hesitated. Although she didn't like Qiu, she might have to ask Qiu for help later. In addition, she still wanted to save a little friendship with Chu Qing. If she refused at this time, it would be very embarrassing for him. Moreover, Xiao Wanru said that she was fine and didn't want to go back. She just wanted to sit here. If she insisted on sitting here with them, although it was reasonable, it would make Qiu and Chu Qing a little embarrassed. First miss, please. Chu Qing helped Qiu calmly, took a step back with a smile, slightly cupped his hands and said. Since he had said that, Xiao Yanru couldn't refuse him even if she wanted to. She comforted Xiao Wanru a few more words at once and asked about Xiao Wanru's injury with concern. After that, she left reluctantly. At first, after taking a few steps, she deliberately turned around. She really looked like a good elder sister. Seeing that they had all left, the onlookers also left, leaving Xiao Wanru sitting there alone. They couldn't keep watching her so rudely, so they followed the three people in front of them and slowly walked in along the path to enjoy the scenery. Miss, how are you? After everyone left, Yujia said anxiously and squatted down to take off Xiao Wanru's shoes. Seeing Xiao Wanru's sprained ankle, her face immediately changed. Xiao Wanru's ankle had swollen. Call me Qing. Xiao Wanru's forehead was immediately covered with sweat after being touched by Yujia. Where is she? Yujia stammered with a pale face. Come out? Xiao Wanru gasped and said in a low voice. Yujia looked around blankly and immediately saw Qing, walking out quickly from behind a tree. She was overjoyed and said with tears in her eyes, Qing, come here and have a look at Mrs. Foot. Of course, she knew that Qing was capable and not an inferior maid at all. She was sent by Prince Qin to protect her Mississippi. In fact, Qing had followed Xiao Wanru all the way down, but Xiao Wanru had not allowed her to come out before. Now that Qing was gone, it was her turn to come out. She walked up to Xiao Wanru, knelt down on one knee, put Xiao Wanru's injured foot on her knee, looked at Xiao Wanru's swollen ankle and said, Miss, please bear with it. But Xiao Wanru gritted her teeth, held Yujia's hand tightly, and looked straight into the distance. She felt a sharp pain in her feet. It was so painful that even though she was prepared, she still couldn't help but groan. Her clothes were soaked in sweat. Fortunately, it was only for a moment, and the sharp pain in her feet was gone. She couldn't even touch it. Miss, it's okay. I'll apply some ointment for you first. You will be fine after resting for a few days. It will take a few days for the swelling to subside. Qing took out a bottle of ointment from her bosom and carefully applied it to Xiao Wanru's ankle. Immediately, the cool feeling diluted the previous burning pain. The ointment Qing brought was given by Chu Luqian, so it was naturally very effective. After applying the ointment, Qing was about to tear the cloth on her petticoat, but was stopped by Xiao Wanru. Looking at Yu Jie standing beside her, Xiao Wanru pointed at her and said, "Tear Yu Jie's skirt." She only took Yu Jie with her when she went out, so she could only use Yu Jie's cloth to bandage Qing wound. She didn't want others to find out about Qing injury prematurely. Both Qing and Yu Jie understood. Yu Jie picked up her outer robe, and Qing grabbed the corner of her inner robe and tore it hard. A piece of cloth was torn off, and Qing carefully wrapped it around Xiao Wanru's ankle before putting down Xiao Wanru's foot. "Go to Huiding Nun, who works for Mingqiu Nun, and ask her to take a look at me. It's better to ask another nun to come here." Xiao Wanru stretched her foot and felt that although her foot was still a little soft and painful, it was basically fine. So she immediately gave an order. Although others didn't know the relationship between Mingqiu Nun and her, the fact that Mingqiu Nun came from Jiangzhou and she also came from Jiangzhou could make others have some guesses. Nodded, and then her figure flashed and vanished from their fields of vision. Xiao Wanru sat for a while and felt that her foot was fine. So she stood up with the help of Yu Jie and walked inside slowly. Since there was such a beautiful scenery, she might as well enjoy it. Not only could she enjoy the beautiful scenery, but she could also make Xiao Yanru suspect that she deliberately pretended to hurt her leg. Why not? Xiao Yanru's actions today could be said to be one trap after another. At the beginning, when she met Chu Qing, it seemed that Chu Qing had made a mistake. Could it be that Chu Qing wanted to meet her at that time? But she obviously had no contact with Chu Qing at all. These were the things she couldn't figure out. As for the matter about the two old maids, Qing had noticed that Shu Qi had secretly contacted the two old maids. The two old maids moved in as ordinary pilgrims at the foot of the mountain. They didn't look like servants in the mansion, but like real villagers. At a glance, it could be seen that they had never been disciplined in their behavior. It was impossible for Xiao Yanru to get in touch with such people. Who found them for her? With Xiao Yanru's character, it was impossible for her to directly ask the servants in the mansion to find them, because it was easy to expose herself. Before doing anything, Xiao Yanru would carefully consider the result after she failed. Such people were the most difficult to deal with. She raised the corner of her mouth silently. She would force Xiao Yanru into a panic step by step. If she kept acting like this, even if she foiled her plot, she couldn't find out who she was. As for the two of them wearing the same clothes today, was it because Xiao Yanru wanted to force her to wear the same clothes and was afraid that she would change them? Was it because she wanted to frame her? If that was the case, did it mean that it was not a surprise to meet Chu Qing here today? Thinking of Chu Qing's gentleness and elegance and politeness before, could it be that he wanted to push this person in front of him? She didn't think it through, and the more she thought about it, the more suspicious she felt. She stopped and suddenly said, "Yu Jie, my hairpin was broken just now. Go and see if it's still there." "Yes, I'll go and find it right away." Yu Jie looked at Xiao Wanru's beautiful hair and found that the hairpin was indeed missing. She immediately turned back to the place where the accident happened. As expected, she found the broken hairpin on the ground and came back with a sad face. The hairpin looked simple, but it was very valuable. "Miss, it's okay. Put it away. I have another one here." Xiao Wanru took out a hairpin from her sleeve, handed it to Yu Jie, and motioned for her to pin it on her head. Yu Jie took the hairpin and looked at it. She was stunned. Chapter 583. "Miss, this hairpin is not suitable, is it?" As Xiao Wanru's personal maid, she naturally knew Xiao Wanru's accessories very well. This hairpin was not given to her by others, but made by Xiao Wanru herself. It was made of bamboo, not ordinary bamboo, but the purple bamboo in Huaguang Temple. She got this purple bamboo from Prince Jin. Not everyone could get the purple bamboo in Huaguang Temple. When she took it back, Xiao Wanru cut a sharp hairpin herself, but later this hairpin was taken away by Prince Jin. When it appeared again, the originally coarse hairpin had been carved with an orchid, a purple orchid. With the original color of the purple bamboo, She trimmed the hairpin and made it look extremely beautiful. Xiao Wanru used to put this hairpin in a secret compartment at the corner of the jewelry box. When Yujie took it out before, Xiao Yanru didn't see it, because there was only one hairpin in this secret compartment. If she didn't take it out, no one would notice it. This one? Xiao Wanru insisted. Yes. Seeing that Miss was so insistent, Yujie could only agree. She carefully inserted the hairpin into her hair and pinned it firmly. Just now, although her hair was still in a bun, it was a little loose. If she didn't pin the hairpin early, it would definitely be loose later. If someone saw it, it would be impolite. There was a light purple hairpin in her black hair. The slightly raised hair looked like an orchid. Upon a closer look, it was indeed an orchid, which was very unique and beautiful. It immediately made her plain black clothes look very vivid. Only this hairpin had some color on her clothes. However, this kind of natural purple color had its own kind of light elegance. Even though this color was a little out of place in Xiao Wanru's black clothes, it had its own kind of beauty. Let's go! Xiao Wanru looked at the road ahead and walked forward slowly. Yujie followed closely. This time, Xiao Wanru really focused on enjoying the scenery. Her feet were still swollen, so it was not convenient for her to walk, so she simply held Yujie's arm and walked while enjoying the scenery. From time to time, she stopped to pick up a few beautiful red leaves and asked Yujie to keep them. Most of the maple leaves falling from the trees were broken and uneven in red. Few of them were intact and colorful. Xiao Wanru walked and stopped from time to time, but only picked a dozen leaves that she liked. Fifth sister, is your foot better? When Xiao Wanru squatted down to pick up the red leaves on the ground and looked at them carefully, she suddenly heard Xiao Yanru's gentle and surprised voice. Xiao Wanru looked up and saw Xiao Yanru, Qiu Yu, and Chu Qing coming back together in front of her. She didn't get up but just waved the red leaf in her hand. Big sister, I'm choosing a good maple leaf. Fifth sister, why do you want a good maple tree? Xiao Yanru came over and asked in surprise. If you like these, you can pick them back and put them in the book. Xiao Wanru lowered her head again and gestured at the two maple leaves in her hand. Both of them were still intact. Fifth sister, get up quickly. Is your foot better? Doesn't it hurt to squat like this? Xiao Yanru said with concern and was about to pull Xiao Wanru up. First miss, don't pull my master. My master's foot hurts and she can't get up for a while. Yujie stood up, stopped Xiao Yanru's hand, and said. Her hand happened to block Xiao Yanru's hand. Then let her get up. How can she squat like this? She has been injured and can't move. She sweated profusely in pain when she walked a few steps before. Xiao Yanru looked increasingly concerned, but she didn't reach out her hand again. Instead, she tried to persuade her. She sweated profusely in pain when she walked a few steps before. Now she must have walked a lot. Chu Qing looked at Xiao Wanru and found that she looked calm and there was no sweat on her white and tender forehead. There was a trace of doubt in his eyes. Could it be that the fifth Miss Xiao pretended to be injured before? Qiu Yu's eyes also fell on Xiao Wanru's face. He couldn't see her face under the veil, but she didn't seem to be in so much pain under the veil. Did she pretend to be injured? Xiao Wanru stood up with the help of Yujie. Perhaps because she had squatted for a long time, she staggered slightly. Fortunately, Yujie had prepared for it. She grabbed Xiao Wanru with force and didn't let go until Xiao Wanru steadied herself. I'm better. Thank you for your concern, big sister. Xiao Wanru said softly. She looked at the three people who came together and seemed to be in a good mood and said, Big sister, have you finished your stroll? How is the scenery in front? If my foot is not injured, I can go to the front with you and have a look. As she said, there was a trace of disappointment in her eyes. Xiao Yanru glanced at Shuqi, and Shuqi immediately stepped forward, approached Xiao Wanru intimately, and said with a smile, Fifth miss, you can also finish your stroll. Try to move your foot. You have walked such a long way just now. Maybe you can do it if you move your foot. It seemed that she was encouraging Xiao Wanru, but if one thought about it carefully, they would find that Xiao Wanru was pretending. Indeed, when she was injured, she couldn't even move a single step. However, everyone saw how she forced herself to stand. After that, her forehead was in so much pain that she was sweating. But now, she seemed to be fine. Not only was she fine when squatting on the ground, she was even able to stand up easily. Was this real or fake? Chu Qing looked at the place where they were now and estimated that they had walked a long way. It seemed that the fifth Miss Xiao should have come here soon after they left. There was a trace of thoughtfulness in his eyes. Qiu Yu was not as reserved as Chu Qing. He looked Xiao Wanru up and down a few times and couldn't help saying at this time, "Fifth Miss Xiao, are you hurt?" His words were extremely unpleasant to hear. He meant that Xiao Wanru had pretended to be injured before. As a miss from an aristocratic family who pretended to be injured in front of a man, it was really an eyesore and even made people doubt her purpose and character. In fact, Xiao Yanru didn't think in that direction. After all, she had seen Xiao Wanru's injured look and the way she sweated profusely in pain and couldn't even speak. How could she pretend to be like that? But now, she felt that Xiao Wanru was really good at pretending. It was obvious that she had been deceived by Xiao Wanru at that time. She didn't expect that she would be deceived one day. Xiao Yanru sneered in her heart. In this case, it was a good opportunity. She simply peeled off Xiao Wanru's skin and let Qiu Yu and Chu Qing see clearly how pretentious Xiao Wanru was. She was the most noble miss of Duke Xing's mansion, the most elegant and dignified, so she naturally had to be accompanied by others. Xiao Wanru came to her door to be a foil, so how could she not accept it? She had wanted to step on Xiao Wanru. Since Xiao Wanru asked for it, she couldn't blame herself now. She could only blame herself for being too stupid and thinking that she was infallible to play tricks. "Your Excellency, what do you mean? Our fifth miss was naturally injured. Could it be that she pretended to be injured before?" Yu Jie said to Qiu Yu rudely with a cold face. "Your Excellency, my fifth sister has always been honest. How could she do such a thing? Your Excellency, you have crossed the line." Xiao Yanru's face darkened and she said after Yu Jie. Qiu Yu's face flushed and then turned purple. He felt extremely ashamed to be rebuked by his beloved for other people's affairs in front of Commandery Prince Qing. On the way there, he also saw that Commandery Prince Qing seemed to have a faint affection for the first Miss Xiao, which reminded him of the scene he had seen on his way here just now. The combination of a handsome man and a beautiful woman was very pleasing to the eye, but he didn't like it. Now he was rebuked by Xiao Yanru in front of Chu Qing. Even though she didn't mean it, Qiu Yu still felt extremely ashamed. He couldn't lose face in front of Chu Qing. "Fifth Miss, I have to investigate the case just now. Whether the fifth Miss Xiao is injured or not is related to the handling of this matter. Fifth Miss Xiao, you'd better let me check whether she is injured or not." Qiu Yu coughed hard and said coldly in a businesslike manner. He said these words extremely harshly and looked at Xiao Wanru coldly, as if he would believe that Xiao Wanru deliberately schemed against others if Xiao Wanru disagreed. Xiao Yanru was very satisfied with his behavior. On the way there, she could certainly sense the uneasiness between Qiu Yu and Chu Qing. Now seeing that Qiu Yu was aroused by her, she was secretly complacent. "Your Excellency, my fifth sister is a young lady. How can you check her injury in public?" Xiao Yanru retorted and stood in front of Xiao Wanru, as if she didn't want Xiao Wanru to be bullied. "First Miss, rest assured. Commandery Prince Qing and I will step back and let you check her injury. I believe that you will be an honest young lady and will never bring shame to Duke Xing's mansion." Qiu Yu looked at Xiao Yanru seriously and said. Of course, he wouldn't let Xiao Yanru think that he was a lecher, so he looked at Chu Qing after saying that. Chu Qing naturally nodded. "Fifth sister." Xiao Yanru looked at Xiao Wanru in embarrassment. Xiao Wanru was about to cry because of Qiu Yu's stupidity. He had unconsciously fallen into Xiao Yanru's trap and thought that Xiao Yanru was a good young lady, while Xiao Wanru was the one who would bring shame to Duke Xing's mansion. She raised the corners of her mouth silently, looked at Xiao Yanru with her watery eyes, and said, "Big sister, do you want me to take off my shoes and check them to prove that you are a good young lady, while I will bring shame to Duke Xing's mansion?" Since everyone present was unkind to her, Xiao Wanru didn't stand on ceremony anymore. "First Miss, you just listened to what Lord Qiu said, but you don't believe a word of what my miss said. Who is trustworthy, Lord Qiu or my miss? Could it be that in eldest Miss Hart, our young miss is such an untrustworthy person? Yu Jie stood in front of Xiao Wanru with an angry look, glared at Xiao Yenru, who was pretending to be sympathetic, and said. Her words were so harsh that Xiao Yenru almost couldn't help but reach out to slap Yu Jie. How dare this servant girl say such words? Who gave her the courage to say that in front of her? How dare you? As a servant girl, you should say that. Shuqi rebuked loudly, took 2 steps forward, and reached out to slap Yu Jie. She was Xiao Yenru's principal servant girl and had always been respected by the servants in Duke Xing's mansion. Chapter 584. Yu Jie moved quickly, blocked Shuqi's hand, and gave her a hard push. Shuqi almost lost her balance and took a few steps back before she could stand still. When she stood still, she was so angry that her face turned livid. When she was about to step forward and argue with Yu Jie again, she saw Xiao Yenru waving her hand. Then she stood behind Xiao Yenru angrily and glared at Yu Jie. Fifth sister, you should teach this servant girl well. We are a family. There are some things that should be said and some things that shouldn't be said. If she says something that shouldn't be said, it will be a small matter if she loses her life, but if she implicates her master, it will be a big matter. Xiao Yenru's face was a little tense, and her eyes became cold. Xiao Wanru bowed sideways to her and said insincerely, Big sister, you are right. After going back, I will discipline her more, lest she offends someone next time. Her words sounded soft, but there was a hidden needle in them. Xiao Yenru wanted to give Xiao Wanru a hard time, but it was inconvenient for her to do so in front of Chu Qing and Qiuyu. She had always liked to show a dignified and gentle look in front of others. Fifth miss, she is obviously talking nonsense and gossiping about her master. If we were in the mansion, we would have directly beaten her to death. Shuqi was unwilling to let Yu Jie go so easily. She stretched out her hand, pointed at Yu Jie, and said loudly, You are just a servant girl. How dare you scold my servant like this? Xiao Wanru looked up at Xiao Yenru calmly. Although there was still a smile on her face, it was a little cold. Is this the rule of big sister and the rule of our mansion? Yu Jie's words were indeed a little too much, almost exposing Xiao Yenru's dignity. As a servant, she naturally had to be punished. Xiao Wanru also said that she would discipline Yu Jie well, which could be regarded as giving Xiao Yenru face to a certain extent. But now Xiao Yenru's servant girl was also presumptuous. She even threatened Xiao Yenru in front of her. Xiao Wanru hinted that Xiao Yenru was talking about rules on the surface, but in fact the rules were for others. The people around her were extremely unruly. If they said this in private, Xiao Yenru wouldn't care. But now there were 2 outsiders here. She was so angry that her face and neck became thick. However, she had always been able to bear it. She clenched her fists hard and then slowly relaxed them. Shuqi, apologize to Miss Wu. First Miss. Shuqi was not convinced. It was obviously Yu Jie who picked on her. Hurry up, Xiao Yenru said with a cold face. Shuqi did not dare to disobey. She knelt down in front of Xiao Wanru with a plop, gnashed her teeth and said, Fifth miss, I went overboard just now. Please forgive me. Get up, Xiao Wanru said lightly. Shuqi stood up angrily, stood behind Xiao Yenru, and waited for Yu Jie to apologize. After she apologized, it would be Yu Jie's turn to apologize to her master. Eldest sister, just now my servant girl was a little too direct, but her words were wrong, but the truth is the same. Eldest sister didn't listen to a single word I said, but when Lord Qiu asked you to take off my shoes, you heard it very clearly. Scholars say that a doctor should not be punished. Even though I'm not a doctor in ancient times, I'm still a legitimate daughter of an aristocratic family. Eldest sister, you want me to take off my shoes for such a small matter. What is your intention? Xiao Wanru looked at Xiao Yenru with a smile on her face, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Her beautiful eyes were as clear as water, and she slowly glanced at the people present. Even though Qiuyu admired Xiao Yenru, he couldn't help but feel suffocated when Xiao Wanru's beautiful watery eyes glanced at him. After hearing Xiao Wanru's words clearly, he also felt guilty. He just wanted to help Xiao Yenru by taking off her shoes and checking them. As soon as Xiao Wanru said that, Xiao Yinru knew that she was indeed a little too anxious just now and let Xiao Wanru take the lead. This matter was originally a trifle. It was just two rough old maids from the countryside. It was wrong for her to doubt Xiao Wanru's words for the sake of two rough old maids. What was more, Xiao Wanru took off her shoes to prove her innocence. Xiao Yinru took a deep breath and bowed deeply to Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru turned sideways politely to avoid it. In the eyes of others, Xiao Yinru was, after all, a sister with an excellent reputation. Fifth sister, I was wrong about this matter. Just now, I was in a mess because of my concern. I thought that I couldn't let Lord Chiu frame you unjustly, but I didn't think of other things. Please forgive me, fifth sister. Xiao Yinru apologized to Xiao Wanru very sincerely. Chu Qing looked at Xiao Wanru calmly and then at Xiao Yinru. Xiao Yinru looked really graceful. Compared with her fifth sister, Xiao Yinru was very considerate and behaved like a legal wife. If he could marry Xiao Yinru, it would be a very good thing. As for the fifth Miss Xiao, she was a little sharp and unforgiving, so she was not easy to get along with. If he married her as his legal wife, he was afraid that he would not be able to take other concubines in the future. He was not powerful enough now, so it was not good for him to marry only one wife. He had to choose a few more concubines in order to get in touch with the officials in the imperial court. In comparison, Xiao Yinru was naturally better than Xiao Wanru. Moreover, Xiao Yinru was the top beauty in the capital city. With this title, it was the most worthwhile to marry her. Although her eyes were not as good as the fifth miss of the Xiao's mansion, her overall appearance should be better than that of the fifth Mississippi. Otherwise, why hadn't he heard of the fifth miss? It was said that the first Miss Xiao was both talented and beautiful. With this in mind, he immediately made a decision. He smiled and changed the topic. Since it's a misunderstanding, let's just talk about it. Whether it's the first miss or the fifth miss, they're not narrow-minded people. This matter is over. Lord Chiu, how do you think we should handle this matter? Chu Qing helped her out with a smile and pushed the topic back to Chiu. Xiao Yinru smiled softly at Chu Qing and looked very grateful. Chu Qing responded with a faint and gentle smile. The quiet interaction between the two of them made Chiu Yu's face darken, because Xiao Yinru's maid and Xiao Wanru's maid almost quarreled because of his words just now. He felt extremely guilty, but now his guilt turned into anger. However, he knew that he couldn't force them anymore at this time. He had no right to ask Xiao Wanru to take off her shoes to check. Since the fifth miss is unwilling to do it, forget it. If this case is really small, it may be sent to the capital governor, Chiu Yu said in a low mood. He felt that he had been embarrassed by Xiao Wanru and lost face in front of the beauty he liked, so that Chu Qing could gain favor in front of Xiao Yinru. After saying that, he cupped his hands to Xiao Yinru and said, "First Miss Xiao, I'll go to deal with this matter first." "Thank you, Lord Chiu. If there's anything, please tell me," Xiao Yinru said softly. "Okay, I'll definitely tell the first miss if there's anything." Seeing that Xiao Yinru's attention was on him again, Chiu Yu looked better. Thinking that he might be able to take advantage of this matter to meet the first Miss Xiao a few more times, he immediately felt that it was better to leave this matter in his hands. "Thank you, Lord Chiu." Xiao Wanru also bowed sideways, narrowed her watery eyes slightly, and looked at Chiu Yu's face. She had seen the change of Chiu Yu's face just now. Looking at Xiao Yinru's calm look, her eyes became deep. It seemed that Xiao Yinru had also made up her mind. Chiu Yu said goodbye to Chu Qing again, turned around and strode away. "First Miss Xiao, fifth Miss Xiao, shall we go back together now or enjoy the scenery?" Chu Qing said. Although he said this to the two sisters, his gentle eyes fell on Xiao Yinru. Obviously, he really wanted to ask Xiao Yinru for her opinion. "What do you think, fifth sister?" Xiao Yinru thought for a while and looked uncertain. "Big sister and Commandery Prince Qing, you'd better go shopping. I want to stay here and pick some beautiful maple leaves to take back." Xiao Wanru shook her head and refused. "How can I rest assured to leave you here alone?" Xiao Yinru said softly. She frowned and looked at Xiao Wanru with concern. "Big sister, I'm fine. I was fine when you asked me to stay here just now. How could I be fine now? I've gotten much better." Xiao Yinru gently raised her leg and said with a smile, "If you don't believe me, why don't I remove it and show it to you?" When Xiao Wanru was seriously injured just now, Xiao Yinru could leave with others. At this time, it was a little unreasonable to use this as an excuse. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. She knew Xiao Yinru's mind very well. On the one hand, she had an ambiguous relationship with Chu Qing, but on the other hand, she was unwilling to get too close to Chu Qing. After all, the possibility of Chu Qing getting the position was almost zero. In this case, it was impossible for Xiao Yinru to waste more energy on Chu Qing. Moreover, Xiao Yu was here before. If someone asked about it in the future, she could explain it clearly. But now there were only the two of them. However, since Xiao Yinru didn't use this excuse before, she wouldn't allow her to use it now. She glanced at Chu Qing, who was standing aside, and said with a smile, "Commandery Prince Qing, take my big sister around. I should be nearby and can't go far." "First, miss, the scenery here is really good. Let's go for a walk. If you're tired later, you can come back." Chu Qing, of course, couldn't ask for more, so he said with a smile. Hearing their words, Xiao Yinru couldn't really refuse them even though she was full of displeasure. She could only show some concern on her face and said, "Fifth sister, don't go far. I'll come back after a short walk. Just wait for me." "But," Xiao Wanru said with a smile and then watched Chu Qing lead Xiao Yinru to a deep path. It was a small road with branches, which looked much smaller than the main road they had taken before. With Qiu Yu's presence before, they had walked on the main road. Now, was he going to make the atmosphere between them more pleasant? She raised the corners of her mouth slightly. If Xiao Yinru were so easy to deceive, she wouldn't have won the title of being both talented and beautiful. As expected, after taking a few steps, the two of them turned back with their servants and maids, and then walked on the main road again. They turned back and took the road they had taken before. Obviously, Xiao Yinru didn't want to get too close to Chu Qing and Chu Qing, lest Chu Luiwei would be jealous. After seeing their backs disappear from her sight, Xiao Wanru continued what she had done before. She really wanted to pick some beautiful and intact maple leaves. If she remembered correctly, there would be a major event that required these maple leaves. Chapter 585. It didn't take long for Xiao Wanru to get tired. Her feet were not fully recovered, so she couldn't squat for a long time. Yu Jie helped her to a pavilion and let her rest against the fence. She went around the pavilion to pick up maple leaves for Xiao Wanru. The maple forest was very big. They walked all the way forward and almost didn't meet anyone. But after they stopped, they saw waves of people coming in. The incense in the Yuhui nunnery was very popular, and this maple forest was just open to people for the first time. Moreover, it was the best time to enjoy the autumn scenery. Most of them were women, but some of them came with their sisters or elders occasionally. Seeing that there was only Xiao Wanru in the pavilion, no man came in rudely. However, when they passed by, they all peeped at the pavilion secretly. Even if the woman in the pavilion was wearing a veil, her profile was attractive. Two nuns ran in a hurry. One was Huiding Nun, who followed Mingxiu Nun, and the other was Hui Kong, a supervisor disciple of the master of the Yuhui nunnery. Unexpectedly, Huiding Nun brought her here, which was a surprise. As the disciple of the master of the Yuhui nunnery, Hui Kong was a shrewd and capable figure among the disciples of the master of the Yuhui nunnery. She knew that Mingxiu Nun was treating Prince Qin, so Hui Kong was very close to Mingxiu Nun's branch. In the past, she was also very good to Mingxiu Nun's branch. This time, she should be in Mingxiu Nun's branch. "Fifth miss, did you hurt your foot?" Seeing Xiao Wanru in the pavilion, Huiding Nun hurriedly took a few steps forward and bowed to her. Yu Jie, who was picking up maple leaves, saw them and hurriedly came back to stand behind Xiao Wanru. "My miss sprained her foot. I have just treated it for her and bandaged it, but I don't know how it is." Yu Jie said. "Fifth miss, can I have a look at your foot?" Huiding Nun asked. Xiao Wanru looked around uneasily. Although the pavilion was on the side of the road, if someone passed by, they would definitely see the people in the pavilion. "Fifth miss, if you don't treat your foot early, I'm afraid that something serious will happen. Senior sister Huiding is learning medicine from Mingxiu Nun. After she treats your foot, you can rest assured. Concealing an illness for fear of treatment is easy to make a big deal. Although there may be people coming here, no one will see it with me and your servant girl. Hui Kong Nun was a smart person. As soon as she saw Xiao Wanru's look, she knew what she was worried about, so she hurriedly said with a smile. Since she said so, Xiao Wanru could not refuse her and nodded at once. Hui Kong Nun and Yu Jie stood in front of her feet. Hui Ding Nun squatted down, lifted Xiao Wanru's feet, took off her shoes, and then untied the circles of white cloth wrapped around them. In order to dispel Xiao Wanru's nervousness, Hui Ding Nun asked while untying the bandage, "Fifth miss, where did you get this white cloth? It doesn't look like a revolving door is used for bandaging." With one look, one could tell where the white cloth was torn from. It was very irregular. "It's from my body. I was going to bandage it for you just now, but there was no cloth, so I tore it from my body." Yu Jie reached out and slightly lifted her skirt to let others see that there was indeed a piece of cloth missing under her inner skirt. Hui Ding Nun and Hui Kong Nun just glanced at it casually. Originally, they asked in order to dispel Xiao Wanru's nervousness, so no one took it seriously. After the long cloth was untied, Hui Ding Nun saw the swollen foot below. Even Hui Kong Nun felt very painful. Originally, she thought that such a delicate miss just twisted a little and would be fine. She didn't expect that it was really so serious that her ankle was swollen like a steamed bun. Hui Ding Nun reached out and gently pinched Xiao Wanru. While pinching, she asked Xiao Wanru where it hurt and sometimes increased her strength. Xiao Wanru's forehead was covered with a layer of cold sweat because of the pain. "Fifth miss, your servant girl is good. She has already fixed it for you, but you still have to rest more in the future. I'm afraid you have to lie in bed for a period of time, otherwise you may really hurt your muscles and bones." Hui Ding Nun comforted Xiao Wanru in a soft voice. Xiao Wanru's foot had been covered with ointment. After she pressed it with her fingers, some of it got on her hands. Hui Ding Nun put it under her nose and sniffed it. She nodded again and said, "This ointment is very good. Is it from the palace?" "It's from the palace. First miss gave it to our miss before," Yu Jie explained. With the status of Duke Xing's mansion, they naturally had this kind of ointment awarded by the palace. "Very good. Then I won't prescribe other ointment for 5th Mississippi. Just apply this ointment twice a day, in the morning and at night. After that, you have to lie in bed and don't walk anymore. At least you have to." Hui Ding Nun thought for a while and added some days. "You have to rest for at least a few days before you can fully recover." "Yes, 5th miss should have a good rest." Hui Kong Nun also nodded repeatedly. Xiao Wanru's injury was really serious. Although her bones were not hurt, Hui Kong Nun felt that she would definitely not recover without a good rest for a period of time. If it were her, she might say that she needed to rest for a few months. "Thank you, months." Xiao Wanru thanked them. Hui Ding Nun helped her wrap up the bandage again, then tied it up and put on her shoes. Fortunately, the swollen parts were basically on her ankles. Although her feet were also a little swollen, it did not prevent her from putting on her shoes. However, when she put on her shoes, Hui Ding Nun did not put them on properly. Hui Ding Nun stood up and took the handkerchief presented by Yu Jie. She told her, "5th miss, you'd better not put on all your shoes. This will squeeze the wound. Just walk for a while. If it's inconvenient, you can walk slowly." "Thank you. I got it." Xiao Wanru stood up with the help of Yu Jie and walked a little. It was indeed uncomfortable without putting on her shoes, but it was okay in general. "Miss, let's go back now. Do you still want to wait here for the first miss to come back?" Yu Jie suggested. Xiao Wanru hesitated for a moment and looked at the intersection. Xiao Yinru had not come out yet. "Is the 5th miss waiting for the first Miss Xiao?" Hui Kong Nun asked and also looked at the intersection. She also heard that the two misses of Duke Xing's mansion went to the maple forest together today, but why were they not together? The first miss and commandery Prince Qing have gone in to enjoy the scenery for a while. Why haven't they come back yet? Xiao Wanru nodded and said helplessly, "5th miss, you go back first. I'll stay here for you. When I see the first miss, I'll tell her that you have gone back to rest." Hui Kong volunteered. It was said that the first Miss Xiao was talented and beautiful. No one knew what kind of rich family she would marry in the future. Hui Kong felt that if she could leave a good impression on the first Miss Xiao before she got married, she would definitely get more benefits in the future. The first Miss Xiao's future was limitless. I'll have to trouble you, nun. Although Xiao Wanru hesitated, she nodded after moving her feet. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I have nothing to do now. I'll just wait for the first miss to come and send a message. Hui Kong Nun said with a smile. Since it was settled, Xiao Wanru held Yuji's hand, followed Hui Kong Nun and walked slowly to the maple forest. Hui Kong Nun continued to stay here. She sat alone in the pavilion and waited. She was not in a hurry. The scenery here was good. Even as the disciple of the master of Yuhui Nunnery, she could not come in to enjoy the scenery. It was rare for her to enjoy the scenery, so she was in a good mood. Xiao Yenru and Chu Qing appeared after she waited for more than an hour. Seeing Hui Kong Nun in the pavilion, Xiao Yenru was stunned. Hui Kong Nun also saw Xiao Yenru and Commandery Prince Qing and came up to them with a smile. She bowed to Commandery Prince Qing first, and then bowed deeply to Xiao Yenru and said, "First Miss, the fifth Miss has gone back to rest because of her serious foot injury. She asked me to wait here and tell you when you and Commandery Prince Qing come back from enjoying the scenery, so that you won't be anxious." Hui Kong's words were extremely gentle and polite, but Xiao Yenru's face changed greatly when she heard it. She took 2 steps aside and kept a distance from Chu Qing. "Didn't the fifth sister say that she would wait for me here just now?" She said that she didn't feel well and didn't want to walk, so she asked Commandery Prince Qing and me to have a rest. Why did she become so powerful in such a short time? Xiao Yenru said with a frown. Xiao Wanru's repeated words made her increasingly feel that Xiao Wanru was pretending. She also knew Hui Kong in front of her. She was very smart and could be considered one of the top nuns in the Yuhui Nunnery. However, because she was too smart, her mouth was not reliable. Now she saw that she and Chu Qing went to enjoy the scenery together. Even if there were maids and manservants around her, her words were not pleasant to hear, not to mention that she didn't care about her injured sister. Xiao Yenru frowned. She didn't like this feeling very much. It seemed that there were a few invisible threads pulling her, which made everything go wrong for her now, and she felt very aggrieved. Why did this happen? I don't know. First Miss, I've delivered the message. First Miss and Commandery Prince Qing, please take your time. I'll leave now. Hui Kong said with a smile and looked at the two of them meaningfully. Although she was a nun, she had seen a lot of things. In the past, she had seen couples in the Yuhui Nunnery, and there were many people who came to the nunnery to have a rendezvous. When she saw them, she would naturally pretend that she couldn't see or understand them. It was convenient for others and convenient for herself. As a nun, how could she care too much? However, Xiao Yenru's face darkened and she said, "Hui Kong Nun, I'm worried about my fifth sister. I'll go back with you." She was full of displeasure, but she couldn't explain too much to a nun. Hui Kong Nun didn't say anything about her, but she just had an indescribable feeling, which made her angry and annoyed. Xiao Wanru did it on purpose. She was sure. One moment, it was Chiu Yu, and the next moment, it was Chu Qing. Xiao Wanru's injury on her foot was sometimes good and sometimes not good. She kept making trouble because she wanted to spread something that was not in line with her reputation. She would definitely find a chance to expose her. "Commandery Prince Qing, I can't accompany you. My fifth sister's foot is still injured." After saying that to Hui Kong Nun, Xiao Yenru said to Chu Qing with a little modesty, "Since the fifth Miss's foot injury is serious, First Miss, please take your time." Chu Qing knew that he couldn't be anxious at this time. He smiled slightly and said very politely, but there was a trace of contemplation in his eyes. Xiao Wanru's foot was injured? In fact, after making trouble for so long, he didn't believe it. But he didn't know what the fifth Miss Xiao meant. Chapter 586. When Xiao Yenru returned to the courtyard, she went to Xiao Yenru's silence room first. After following Chu Lu into the room, she found that Xiao Wanru was lying on the couch. Her legs were stretched out, and her long skirt trailed down, making it hard to see what exactly was going on. "Fifth sister, let me see your feet." Xiao Yenru took 2 steps forward and walked to the bed with concern, intending to lift Xiao Wanru's skirt. Yu Jie, who was guarding in front of the bed, hurriedly stepped forward and stood in front of the bed. First Miss, Fifth Miss's feet are now covered with medicine. You can't look at them casually. Yu Jie, I'm afraid that the medicine you applied was also inappropriate. You'd better let me have a look, otherwise I'll really be worried. Xiao Yanru said softly. First Miss, don't worry. I have applied ointment for others before. There won't be any mistake. Yu Jie stood still in front of Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru coughed in a low voice and ordered, Chu Lu, ask the first miss to sit down. Eldest miss, please sit. Chu Lu moved a chair over and placed it in front of the couch. Xiao Yanru took 2 steps back, sat down calmly, and looked at Xiao Wanru's face. Xiao Wanru's face was not bad, still pink and ruddy, and her lips were very attractive without any makeup. Even if Xiao Wanru was injured, she couldn't have been seriously injured. Fifth sister, did you know Commander Prince Qing before? Since Xiao Wanru made it clear that she didn't want to see it, Xiao Yanru didn't insist and asked softly. Why do you say that, big sister? I have never seen Commander Prince Qing before. Xiao Wanru said with certainty. On my way there just now, Commander Prince Qing asked me about fifth sister, which is why I came back late just now. I intended to ask him what it was about, but Commander Prince Qing gave me a watertight explanation. I don't know why he... Xiao Yanru said with a frown and a hint of worry in her dignified look. He was obviously worried because of Xiao Wanru. Eldest sister, don't worry. I have nothing to do with this Commander Prince Qing. Today is the first time I've met him. What did he ask about me? Xiao Wanru said with a serious face. It's good if you have nothing to do with him. Xiao Yanru nodded. Although she still looked a little worried, she looked much better than before. He asked about your hobbies, likes and dislikes, what you usually do in the yard and when you will go down the mountain. Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows and said coldly, What does Commander Prince Qing want to do? Doesn't he know that men and women are different? Moreover, I don't even know him, how can he ask such questions? Xiao Yanru nodded in agreement and said, It's rude of me to say that, but he didn't ask me directly just now. He just mentioned it implicitly, so I can't say anything too aggressive. I just said a few words in code. I hope this prince can be polite and don't say anything. Fortunately, he was still polite. After I hinted at him, he said that he had lost his sense of propriety for a moment and that it would not happen again. Xiao Yanru said with a sigh of relief, It should be that Commander Prince Qing knows that even if he can't control his feelings, he can't ruin others' reputation, so he will not take the initiative to inquire about you in the future. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. It seemed that she was thinking about her, but she kept pointing out one thing. Was she trying to say that Chu Qing was interested in her? Chu Qing was very handsome. Although he was not as handsome as Chu Luqian, who looked like an alluring young man coming out of an ink painting, nor was he as elegant as Wen Shiqi, who looked a bit ethereal, he was still a rare outstanding man. In addition, he was a commandery prince now. If he fell in love with her, even if she didn't want to marry him, she must be happy in her heart. At a certain time, this kind of joy could even become fierce. Xiao Wanru had never experienced such fierce feelings in her last life or this life, but it did not prevent her from sorting out many things before and after. She figured out what she couldn't figure out before in a moment. Chu Qing's appearance today was not accidental, or it had something to do with her a long time ago. He might even have made an appointment with him in her name. Otherwise, it was impossible for Chu Qing to show up here at this time to enjoy the scenery. He had just returned to his family, so he naturally had a lot of things to show others. How could he have the time to enjoy the scenery leisurely at this time? If Xiao Yanru had made an appointment with him on behalf of her, in order to make the situation seem real, she would naturally mention what she was wearing today. The reason why she dressed like this was not to confuse her, but to prevent her from wearing other clothes today. Xiao Yanru was creating an ambiguous relationship between her and Chu Qing. If what she said just now was really true for a teenage girl, it would be very easy to seduce her. A young and handsome man fell in love with a girl, but he was very polite. In order to protect her reputation, he could only hide aside and watch her secretly. How could such deep love not make an innocent girl fall in love? Based on Xiao Wanru's simple experience in this life, she was really just a girl who knew nothing. Even though she had passed her 14th birthday, she had grown up in the Yuhui nunnery. She was still young before she went to the Yuhui nunnery, so she didn't know anything about love between a man and a woman. Of course, she didn't understand the tender affection in Chu Qing's eyes when he looked at Xiao Yanru just now. Unfortunately, Xiao Yanru still misjudged Xiao Wanru and didn't expect that Xiao Wanru was actually a reincarnated body. She had thought that with Xiao Wanru's experience, how could Xiao Wanru understand? Even if Xiao Wanru was cunning, Xiao Wanru would believe her after she said it a few more times. Big sister, Commander Prince Qing has nothing to do with me. Please don't mention him in the future. Xiao Wanru said with a little displeasure on her face. Of course. I said a few more words just now because I'm afraid that you will arouse suspicion when you have more contact with Commander Prince Qing in the future. Since fifth sister understands, I will be careful with my words. I also hope that Commander Prince Qing can restrain his desire, otherwise he may cause trouble. After Xiao Yanru nodded, she showed a little worried and said, after all, he is the emperor's new nephew, and the emperor has always doted on his two nephews. Big sister, you mean? Xiao Wanru understood and showed a panic on her face. I'm afraid that he will directly ask for a marriage. I heard that he is not young. Xiao Yanru frowned and looked really anxious. Then she reached out to rub her forehead and continued without looking at Xiao Wanru's face. The Empress Dowager has always doted on the children of the late emperor. You can see it from Prince Jin. Now if Commander Prince Qing really asks for a marriage, speaking of this, Xiao Yanru couldn't go on. She looked at Xiao Wanru with a melancholy look, as if she couldn't come up with a good solution. The Empress Dowager and the Emperor doted on Chu Luqian, but it didn't mean that they would also dote on Chu Qing. If Chu Qing was really favored by the Empress Dowager, he wouldn't have to put on so many hypocritical airs at this time. Of course, Xiao Wanru wouldn't say this out loud. She looked a little flustered. She held the corner of the quilt beside her, sat up, and asked, Big sister, what should I do now? I don't know either. Xiao Yanru said worriedly. After hesitating for a moment, she looked at Xiao Wanru and said, why don't we ask Grandma to report this matter to the Empress Dowager and say that you are still observing mourning and can't get engaged? Her words sounded very reasonable, but after thinking about it carefully, she found it absurd. Not to mention that Xiao Wanru would observe mourning for a few months. How did she know that Chu Qing would ask for a marriage? She couldn't explain it clearly and prove her innocence. She had been meditating in the Yuhui nunnery, so how could she know Chu Qing's thoughts? Could it be that they had an affair long ago? Was it just a pretense? Moreover, it was even more inappropriate to ask old madam to come forward. Xiao Wanru had never felt good about old madam's feelings for her. Therefore, this way sounded feasible, but in fact, it was absolutely impossible for Xiao Wanru. She shook her head and said, we'd better not bother Grandma with this matter. Grandma is still ill. Moreover, Commander Prince Qing didn't tell us directly about it, so how could we know? But if you really go to ask for a marriage, it will be too late. Moreover, it will affect your reputation of observing mourning for a long time. If you really want it, you have to wait until you go down the mountain to talk about it. Xiao Yanru seemed to be worried about Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru lowered her head and said after thinking for a while, Big sister, do you think I should go to see him and make it clear? Of course, this is the best. As long as you make it clear, it will be fine. Xiao Yanru nodded repeatedly. But after saying that, she seemed to feel that she had agreed too quickly, so she looked hesitant again and said, this kind of thing, if it is seen by others, I'm afraid it will not be good. Then don't let others see it. Miss, don't let others see it. Make it clear to Commander Prince Qing. Yu Jie said anxiously. Looking at the servant girl who was wholeheartedly protecting Xiao Wanru, Xiao Yanru finally couldn't bear it anymore, and a smile flashed across the corners of her mouth. It would be best if we cannot let others see it. But this is the nunnery, and the people of the Ministry of Justice have not left yet. Even at night it's still. Xiao Yanru raised a new question with a worried look on her face. Fifth sister, you'd better not go. It's better to be safe than sorry. If there is any accident, fifth sister, you'd better jump into the Yellow River to wash yourself clean. I can't make it clear. Miss Sugo, write a letter and make it clear. I'll send it to him for you, Yujia said anxiously again. This. Xiao Wanru was very hesitant. This is a good idea. At least your master is not in danger. You are really a good girl. If someone finds you as a servant girl, you can just say that you met him by chance. Xiao Yanru nodded repeatedly, sighed with emotion, and reminded Yujie by the way. Miss, please let me go. I'll be in less danger than you. Yujie looked at Xiao Wanru and said earnestly. Then she knelt down in front of Xiao Wanru's bed with a plop, and put her hands on the bed. Miss, please let me go. If Commandery Prince Qing really asks the Imperial Palace to grant me a marriage, your reputation will be ruined. Well, but... Xiao Wanru looked at Yujie and then at Xiao Yanru, bit her lip, and made up her mind. Since you're going to write a letter, you can't make it too detailed. You should be vague in case you miss anything. Xiao Yanru thought for a while and reminded Xiao Wanru. It seemed that she was thinking about Xiao Wanru, but in fact it was full of traps. A vague letter could be understood in one way or another. She glanced at Xiao Yanru's face with her watery eyes, and her eyes slowly became cold. Xiao Yanru was really scheming. She was trying to send her weakness to Chu Qing. Chapter 587. A letter that was truly written by oneself, would explode with destructive power at the right time. It was certainly not something one could withstand. Even her maternal grandma would be implicated because the other party was Chu Qing. As the eldest son of the late emperor, both the emperor and the empress dowager had to take care of him on the surface. Moreover, the letter was written vaguely, so it could be interpreted in any way. Forget it. Xiao Wanru suddenly reached out to rub her head, took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and leaned back. Miss. Yujie was at a loss. She didn't know why her master suddenly stopped talking just now. Fifth sister, since you want to have a rest, I'll go back first. If you need any help, just send someone over to tell me. No matter what, you are my blood relative and the miss of Duke Xing's mansion. The reputation of our Duke Xing's mansion can't be ruined. Xiao Yanru stood up and said goodbye with a smile. She didn't get angry because of Xiao Wanru's capriciousness. Her expression and behavior were very good. Thank you, big sister, Xiao Wanru said with a weak look. She didn't open her eyes and just nodded. Xiao Yanru turned around and left the room with Shuqi, returning to the main room from the corridor. After arriving at the main room, Xiao Yanru sat down on the chair in front of the desk with a sneer on her face. After serving tea, Shuqi said in confusion, First miss, the fifth miss really doesn't want to send a letter to Commandery Prince Qing. Isn't she afraid that Commandery Prince Qing will really ask the emperor to grant her a marriage at this time and ruin her reputation? She will. Xiao Yanru said with certainty. She looked at the yard outside the window, where Qing was sweeping the floor with a big broom and moving some hard objects from time to time. There was a small jar there, which Xiao Yanru hadn't paid attention to in the past. She didn't know if it had been in the yard. Didn't the fifth miss just say forget it? Shuqi became more and more confused. She is afraid that I will know it and ruin her plan, so she pretends to be calm. Xiao Yanru said with a sneer. She didn't believe that Xiao Wanru was not afraid. If it was a really stupid woman, she would definitely feel that this matter was actually not bad. Chu Qing went to ask for a marriage. If the emperor agreed, she would be the legal wife of the Junwang. In addition, Chu Qing's own conditions were not bad. This should be a good marriage. However, smart women would be more careful and think that it was not suitable for Xiao Wanru to get engaged at this time. If she attracted a man's attention, she must have a bad character and behave dissolute. If she went to ask for a marriage, she would not only not become the princess consort of Commandery Prince Qing, but also be a concubine. Even if Xiao Wanru had the backing of Great Elder Princess would not be able to protect her if she annoyed the emperor. At most, she would be a nominal concubine, and the position of the legal wife would not be given to her. Xiao Yanru had been in contact with Xiao Wanru for a period of time, so she knew that Xiao Wanru was definitely not a stupid person. In this case, Xiao Yinru was more aware of the consequences and would never let Chu Qing propose marriage. Moreover, she had hinted that Chu Qing was very devoted to her. Even if she wronged herself, she could not ruin Chu Qing's reputation. If she made this request, Chu Qing would definitely listen to it. There was no danger, and Xiao Yinru was sure to deal with this matter. Xiao Yinru did not believe that Xiao Wanru would not be tempted. The reason why Xiao Wanru said the last words must be to guard against her. Xiao Yinru's departure at this time was to give Xiao Wanru time to make arrangements. With Xiao Wanru's cautious character, she should not really go there by herself. Moreover, didn't she say that her foot was injured now? Of course, this was not a sure thing. If Xiao Wanru really went there by herself, she must not let go of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She must definitely send someone to catch the adulterer. If she really caught the adulterer, she could not only take Xiao Wanru hostage, but also threaten Commandery Prince Qing. How could she let go of killing two birds with one stone? Chu Luiyue would definitely like this kind of thing. She stood up, picked up the writing brush, dipped it in the ink stone, and began to write. After finishing writing, she put the paper in her hand into the envelope, handed it to Shuqi, and said, "Go down the mountain right now and give this letter to Moyan. Ask her to give it to Prince Yu, and then ask my father to invite the Imperial physician who specializes in treating trauma to the Yuhui nunnery to treat fifth sister's injury." Xiao Yinru would not directly send the letter down the mountain to others. She would first send it to Moyan, her personal maid in her mansion, and then send it out. In this way, she could avoid being found out and also confuse the public. The Imperial physician generally did not treat others, but if her father came forward, it should be possible. Moreover, Xiao Wanru was the granddaughter of Wu and great elder princess. It was said that the emperor also attached great importance to this doctor surnamed Chu. Invite the Imperial physician, the one who knows best about trauma? Xiao Yinru nodded. She did not believe that she could not find out the truth about Xiao Wanru's pretense. "Yes, First Miss, but don't you want to give this to Prince Zhou?" Shuqi took the letter and asked after hesitating for a moment. It was not that she was bold, but sometimes Xiao Yinru would send 2 letters. "It's not necessary this time. Just ask Prince Yu to secretly find someone to keep an eye on Chu Qing." Xiao Yinru shook her head and said with a smug sneer on her face. At this time, there was no need to send too many people. Unlike that dark night, the more people who took advantage of the burning house, the better. In this way, it would be more difficult to figure out who did it. Of course, this had nothing to do with her. She was just a weak girl in the boudoir. "Miss, do you want me to bring another maid from the foot of the mountain to serve you? As soon as I leave, there will be no maid to serve you." Shuqi looked at Qing'er outside the window and said indignantly, "Look at the 5th Mississippi." She said that she would go up the mountain to cultivate in seclusion, but she brought so many maids with her and even left an inferior maid in the yard. "But miss, it is inconvenient for you to go out alone." Especially when she was about to go down the mountain occasionally, leaving only Xiao Yinru here. Shuqi really felt indignant for her master. In any case, her master's identity was the most noble. The upbringing of the eldest daughter of lineal descent in an aristocratic family was usually different from that of other daughters. Although other misses were also lineal daughters, their upbringing was far from enough. What was more, the 5th miss was an outsider. "No, you alone are enough. It's inconvenient for me to serve others." Xiao Yinru shook her head. She didn't need too many maids to serve her. Xiao Wanru had lived on the mountain for a long time, so it was normal for more maids to serve her. However, she would only stay on the mountain for a few days. It was not good for her to make a scene. "Miss, what about your lunch later?" Shuqi was still worried. "When you go out later, tell Qing to bring me lunch at noon. As for dinner, you should be back." Xiao Yinru blinked her eyes and looked at Qing, the maid in the courtyard. Qing, who seemed to be strong, pushed the jar aside and continued to clean the room. It was inconvenient for Xiao Wanru last time because Xiao Wanru's maids were not there. But now they were all there. Even if they were not there for a while, Shuqi had told the little maid in advance. Even if the little maid brought her lunch later, she wouldn't starve. This little maid was Xiao Wanru's maid. She usually did some rough work in the courtyard and cleaned the courtyard most of the time. She seldom went to Xiao Wanru's silence room. At first glance, she could tell that she was not valued. It was much better to use Xiao Wanru's maid than to use her own. When you tell her later, give her a bigger pouch. Tell her that I reward her for cleaning so hard, and then ask her to bring me lunch. Xiao Yanru ordered. Yes, Mississippi. I'll tell her now and then go down the mountain. Seeing her master's look, Shuchi knew that she must have an idea again, so she immediately answered and left. When she walked out of the door and saw Qing in the courtyard, she showed a big smile and walked over. Qing, what are you doing? Shuchi walked up to Qing and asked in surprise when she saw that she was still fiddling with the jar. Shuchi felt that she had never seen this jar before. There are water lilies in this jar. I'm going to find a good place to put it so that the fifth miss can have a look. He said without looking back and continued to push the jar. Although the vat wasn't particularly big, there was still a vat of water in it. There were a few water lilies on the surface of the water, and there were even flowers blooming on them. To be able to see such a vat of water lilies in this autumn really made people's eyes light up. Just the rich green color was enough to make people feel happy. Where did the water lilies come from? They are still blooming. Shuchi was really surprised. There was also a place in the Yuhui nunnery where there were water lilies, but at this time, the water lilies had withered. It was impossible to see such thin but blooming water lilies. I got them from Pushun Nun. I heard that Pushun Nun will come back at some time. The water lilies in this jar are excellent. The fifth miss was very happy to see them when she went to see Pushun Nun last time. She heard that Pushun Nun was not here and no one took care of this jar of water lilies, so she asked the abbess to take care of it. Qing finally pushed the jar to a place in front of the silence room. After looking around, she felt satisfied, wiped the sweat on her forehead, and looked back at Shuchi with a bright smile. Sister Shuchi, are you going out? Yes, I'm going down the mountain to get some clean clothes for my master. The clothes I took before are not light and my master doesn't like them. I can't come back at noon. Qing, please help my master get lunch from the kitchen, okay? Shuchi's attention fell on Qing again, and she quietly handed over a pouch. In the past, Qing would sometimes get a pouch from Shuchi. At this time, she took it very naturally. After touching it and finding that there were a lot of things in it, she said with an increasingly bright smile, Sister Shuchi, you can go back. Don't worry. I've even got dinner for the first miss, not to mention lunch. You can go down the mountain. Thank you. Don't mention it. I'm a maid. There's no difference between serving the first miss or the fifth Mississippi. Both the first miss and the fifth miss are my masters. You don't have to thank me. Qing said with a carefree smile. Although her voice was not loud, Xiao Yanru, who had been paying attention to them, heard it clearly and couldn't help showing a smile on her face. Qing was an inferior maid who couldn't attract Xiao Wanru's attention, but she was Xiao Wanru's maid. It was a good choice. Xiao Yanru had asked Shuchi to reward her with money in various affairs. It seemed that she was not completely stupid. She needed such a maid by her side now. Chapter 588. Qing put away the purse and was very active in doing things. Before Xiao Wanru came back with the lunch, she had already brought it back for Xiao Yanru, and it was a large portion. Seeing Qing come in with a lunchbox that was bigger than usual, Xiao Yanru smiled gently. She didn't care about the amount of food, but the people's hearts. It was the most advantageous for her to recruit Xiao Wanru's people quietly, which might come in handy at the critical moment. First miss, I've brought lunch for you. Sister Shuchi told me to do it before she left. Qing put the huge lunchbox in front of Xiao Yanru, wiped her sweat, and said, Thank you. Xiao Yanru smiled, put down the writing brush in her hand, looked at the huge lunchbox, and asked, Why are there so many dishes today? I don't know what you like to eat, so I specially brought a few more dishes. Qing reported with a smile, took out the dishes in the lunchbox quickly, and put them on the table one by one. Isn't it fixed? How can you take more? Xiao Yanru said in surprise. People like them, who lived in the Yuhui nunnery for a long time, had ordered everything in advance, and it was impossible for there to be more. I asked you what dishes you like, first Mississippi. There are some other dishes on the table, so I casually took a few more dishes. Ching, said with a flattering smile. She meant that she didn't know whether others had fewer dishes, but she just needed Xiao Yanru to pick a few dishes she liked. Xiao Yanru couldn't help laughing and said, "You can't do it next time. If you take more dishes, others must have fewer dishes, which is not good for them." Yes, first Mississippi. I see. Seeing Xiao Yanru put down the writing brush, Ching, took the basin with great eyesight, filled it with water, and then brought it to Xiao Yanru attentively, asking her to wash it. After washing it, she brought a handkerchief to Xiao Yanru, and then poured the water away. Have you served fifth sister in the room? Xiao Yanru asked with a smile when she saw that Ching, served others smoothly. I've seen Sister Yujie and Sister Chu Lu serve fifth miss like this. I'm an inferior servant girl, so I can't enter the room at will. I can only watch in the yard. Ching, lowered her head and said with a little envy. As an inferior servant girl, she was bound to be envious of her principal personal servant girl. This not only represented a higher monthly salary, but also a higher prestige. Which principal personal servant girl didn't have more prestige than inferior servant girls? Even many principal personal servant girls had servants to serve them except in front of their masters. Ching, do you also want to be the principal maid in the room? Xiao Yanru sat down and asked with a smile. Seeing the teapot and teacups on the table, Ching, hurriedly reached out to pour a cup for Xiao Yanru. After that, she nodded hard and said with a little shyness, yes. Then you have to work hard. Maybe my fifth sister will make you her personal maid. Xiao Yanru said with a smile. Ching widened her eyes and looked at Xiao Yanru in surprise. First miss, do you think that I might become the fifth Mrs. Principal Maid? Why not? Ching, is such a smart girl. She knows how to serve others in the yard. If my fifth sister is willing, she will definitely make me her personal maid. Xiao Yanru picked up the teacup, took a sip and said with a gentle smile. Really? That's great. Ching, was pleasantly surprised, but she immediately lowered her head and said with disappointment. The fifth miss won't let me be her principal maid. Why? Xiao Yanru asked with interest in a soft voice. The fifth miss already has so many capable sisters around her. Besides, I'm just an inferior servant girl who can only do some rough work and is of no great use. Ching, said aggrievedly, I can't get close to the fifth miss. Why can't you get close to my fifth sister? Sometimes she asks you to serve her, doesn't she? Xiao Yanru asked in confusion, and the smile on her face became increasingly gentle. It was unknown whether it was because of the gentle smile on Xiao Yanru's face that Ching, became bolder and said, Sister Yujie and Sister Chu Lu won't let me get close to the fifth Mississippi. Even if the fifth miss occasionally asks me to go over, they will stop me intentionally or unintentionally. The fifth miss trusts Sister Yujie and Sister Chu Lu most, so she won't see me. Said with her head lowered more and more, looking very aggrieved. If my fifth sister makes it clear that she doesn't want you next time, you can come to me. I like you very much and can make you my principal maid. Xiao Yanru said with a soft smile. Really? Suddenly raised her head and looked at Xiao Yanru in surprise. Of course. Would I lie to you? Xiao Yanru looked her up and down with a smile and nodded. Thank you, First Mississippi. Thank you, First Mississippi. I will definitely do a lot of things for you in the future. I am very diligent. Ching Er's eyes lit up with excitement. Of course, Xiao Yanru knew about her reaction. She smiled at once, picked up the chopsticks without saying anything, and slowly began to have lunch. The green girl didn't say anything while eating or sleeping. She didn't clean up her chopsticks until she finished the meal quietly. You are given to my fifth sister by Great Elder Princess. During the period of time on the mountain, you should mainly serve my fifth sister. After we go to the Yuhui nunnery and return to Duke Xing's mansion, I will ask my fifth sister for you. At that time, you can directly come to my courtyard and be my principal maid. Xiao Yanru wiped her lips with a handkerchief and ordered. First miss, rest assured. I understand. I understand. Qing was still excited at the moment. Hearing Xiao Yanru's words, she became even more excited. The fifth miss would only stay on the mountain for a few months at most. After she went down the mountain and went to Duke Xing's mansion, she would be a member of Duke Xing's mansion. At that time, as long as the first miss asked, it would be done. As an inferior servant girl, it was not a great thing to be suddenly promoted to the level of a principal maid. Any inferior servant girl would have the same reaction as Qing when they encountered such a thing. The principal maids of the misses of aristocratic families had to be carefully selected. An inferior servant girl was nothing. It was a great thing to be favored by the Mississippi. Xiao Yanru was satisfied with Qing's reaction. This was the effect she wanted. I will also live on the mountain temporarily during this period of time. Speaking of this, Xiao Yanru paused for a moment and continued, I may leave. But no matter what, I will always remember what I promised you. You can serve my fifth sister with peace of mind. If I have something to do, you can help me occasionally when you are free. First miss, rest assured. Just tell me what you need. I will definitely do it without hesitation. Qing almost patted her chest and promised that she would definitely help Xiao Yanru. That's good. It's nothing. It's just a small errand. There are water lilies in that vat, right? Why don't you push the vat of water lilies to my side so that I can see them when I push the window open? Xiao Yanru rolled her eyes slightly, stood up, and slowly pointed out of the window and said, it was an extremely small thing. Such a small thing was used to test Qing. In fact, it was not about the small vat of water lilies, but to see if the girl was on her side. Although Xiao Yanru felt that she had said so much and any smart servant girl knew how to choose between her and Xiao Wanru, she had always been cautious, so of course she still had some doubts. She could use the water lilies to prove it. Okay, first miss, wait a moment. I will push the vat to your window so that you can appreciate the water lilies when you are tired. Qing rolled up her sleeves and said, Sister Yuja said that the fifth miss wanted to draw water lilies. I think it's more important for the first miss to appreciate it when you are tired. As Qing said, she hurriedly turned around and was about to leave without any hesitation without cleaning up the remaining lunch on the table. Wait a minute. Xiao Yanru stopped her with a smile. First miss, what's wrong? Stopped and asked in confusion. Since the fifth sister wants to draw, of course you can move it after she finishes. If you push the vat over rashly, how can the fifth sister draw? Xiao Yanru said with a soft smile. Of course, she didn't care about the vat of water lilies. She was very satisfied with Qing's attitude, so she wouldn't really ask Qing to move it, especially the vat that had attracted Xiao Wanru's attention. Xiao Wanru was not easy to fool. She had to be cautious when dealing with her. First miss, you are so kind. Qing said. The fifth sister is still young, so I naturally have to take care of her. Clean up these things and see if there is anything you like to eat. Eat it together. Xiao Yanru said with a smile and pointed to the lunch on the table. Thank you, first miss. Qing smiled so widely that her eyes couldn't be seen. It seemed that she was completely convinced by Xiao Yanru, and then she cleaned up quickly. Xiao Yanru went into the inner room to have a rest, leaving Qing outside to clean up. After cleaning up, she said to the inner room, First miss, I'm going to the kitchen now. First miss, do you need me to bring back anything else? I don't have anything else. Go ahead. Xiao Yanru's extremely gentle voice came from inside. Yes, first miss. Seeing that Xiao Yanru had nothing else to say, Qing walked out of the main room with the lunchbox. When she came to the corridor, she saw Yujie. They looked at each other quietly and then separated. Yujie entered the inner room, opened the lunchbox in her hand, took out a few simple dishes, put them on the table, and then looked at Xiao Wanru, who was standing by the front window to admire the water lilies, and said, Miss, it's time to have lunch. The water lilies are in good condition. Xiao Wanru said. From her window, she happened to see a good jar of water lilies. Some of the slender and elegant flowers were about to bloom. She suddenly remembered her previous idea of raising a jar of water lilies. When she was in Jiangzhou, she didn't raise them, so she only had an empty fish tank. When she came to the capital, she didn't raise them. The fish tank was given to her by Chu Luqian, but she didn't raise them. After she went up the mountain, it was even more inconvenient for her to raise them. Unexpectedly, there was such a jar of water lilies at this time, and they were in good condition, which was really rare. They were sent by His Highness. He said that he sent them in the name of Pushun Nun for you to enjoy. Yu Jie turned around and saw the jar of water lilies at the window, so she answered with a smile. Qing, did you go there? Xiao Wanru raised the corners of her mouth slightly and unconsciously smiled sweetly. She turned around and left the window. Yu Jie hurriedly helped her sit down at the table. Chapter 589. Yes. It seems that she is very satisfied with Qing. Just now, I saw Qing come out with a smile on her face. Yu Jie reported in a low voice. Before they looked at each other just now, they had already given each other a hint. She doesn't have enough manpower now, so it's great for her to get one from me. Moreover, she is using my maid, who was sent by my grandma. No matter from which aspect, she is someone I trust. If someone I trust comes to check on my affairs, it will definitely get half the result with twice the effort. Xiao Wanru raised the corners of her mouth into a beautiful arc, and her smile was elegant and indifferent. First, miss, what do you want to do? Yu Jie asked nervously. She won't be so anxious to use my people right away. At least she has to get in touch with them. Of course, if at a critical moment, she will also send them out. Just wait. Xiao Wanru said casually. Tonight? Yu Jie asked hesitantly. Let's see tonight. Xiao Wanru said with a casual smile, and a trace of gloominess flashed across her eyes. Xiao Yinru wanted to see her play tonight and asked her to meet Chu Qing in private. Even if she didn't meet Chu Qing in private, she had to send a letter to him, but she just sat there and watched her go out tonight. Qiu Yu loved Xiao Yinru very much. How could he let go of such an opportunity? Xiao Yinru wanted to see her play, but she was waiting for her play. First, miss, an official from the Ministry of Justice has come to ask you to go over and ask you about what happened today. Qing wiped her sweat and came in to report to Xiao Yinru. Qiu Yu? Xiao Yinru said with a frown. Yes, it seems so. The Ministry of Justice has sent someone here to ask you to go over and ask for your opinion. Qing said with a nod. Xiao Yinru frowned unhappily. She did have something to say to Qiu Yu, but it was better to say it in private. Why did Qiu Yu ask someone to bring her here in such a big way? It had little to do with her. If he wanted to talk to someone, he should talk to Xiao Wanru. Why did he come to her directly? What did he mean by asking for her opinion? She did have something to do, but she couldn't say it in front of everyone, especially when Qiu Yu sent a message at such an inappropriate time. Why did he come to her instead of Xiao Wanru? Did you find my fifth sister? Xiao Yinru asked with a gentle smile despite her displeasure. Yes, but elder sister Chu Lu replied to 5th Mississippi. She said that it's not a big deal, and Lord Chiu can handle it as he sees fit, Qing replied. This matter was naturally not a big deal. It was originally an accident, and no one was hurt. At the moment, it was Qiu Yu who was nervous. It seemed that Qiu Yu wanted to please him and get some benefits to cure this matter, which was not in line with his intention. Xiao Yinru thought for a while and said, Go to the Ministry of Justice and tell them that since fifth sister doesn't think it's a big deal, just let it go. Yes, this servant will go and inform him immediately. Qing turned around and ran out quickly. When she reached the door and opened it, she saw 2 people at the door. One was an ordinary officer of the Ministry of Justice, and the one standing behind him was Qiu Yu. Qiu Yu's eyes lit up when he saw Qing coming out. He gave a meaningful glance to the person he brought with him. The person hurried forward and asked with a smile, What did your young miss say? He half closed the door and said to the person outside, The first miss said that it's a small matter and that Lord Qiu can handle it himself. Doesn't your young miss have anything to say? Qiu Yu didn't give up and waved his hand. The officer of the Ministry of Justice stepped back and made room for Qing at the door. I'm afraid it's not convenient for the first miss to see you. Qing hesitated for a moment, looked Qiu up and down, and didn't dare to refuse directly. Was she afraid that others would see it? Qiu was overjoyed and hurriedly said, "Go and report to your first Mississippi. It's okay if she doesn't come now. Ask her to come here in the evening. Can she tell her about the two old maids? Something happened to the fifth miss, and it's not convenient for her to go out. If the first miss still doesn't ask about it, I don't know how to deal with it." He meant that there were only two sisters in Duke Xing's mansion on the mountain now. Since the younger sister had an accident, the elder sister naturally had to take full charge of this matter. Moreover, the fifth miss also said that he could deal with it. It was not a big deal. The reason why he took it on was because of Xiao Yanru. Now that he hadn't achieved his goal, he naturally didn't want to leave. If he didn't take advantage of such a chance to get close to the beauty, he was afraid that he wouldn't have another chance in the future. The transfer order from the Ministry of Justice had come. In a few days, he would leave the Yuhui nunnery with the rest of the officers of the Ministry of Justice. At that time, it would not be easy to see the first Miss Xiao again. Therefore, he had to see the first Miss Xiao today no matter what, and it would be better to ask her about her feelings. If she also liked him, he would go back and ask someone to propose to her. Well, the first miss refused just now. Qing said in embarrassment. Just now was just now, and now is now. Go and make it clear. What happened between your first miss and the fifth miss before is not a big deal. Qiu said coldly with a straight face. He worked in the Ministry of Justice, and there was a severe aura under his straight face, which scared Qing so much that she ran into the courtyard without saying a word. How could a lowly servant girl be so daring? Just a little scare and it would be over. Do you have to see me? Xiao Yanru's face darkened. She took a deep breath to suppress her anger. She had planned to ask Shuqi to go there secretly at night after she came back, but now it seemed that Qiu would not give up until he saw her. His men were at the door now, and he probably would not leave without a definite answer from her. If they were seen by others, it would ruin her reputation. No, she couldn't let the people of the Ministry of Justice guard the door. She stood up, walked around the room twice, and stopped. She looked at Qing and was about to say something, but suddenly stopped. She hadn't fully trusted this little servant girl yet. Of course, it was one thing to trust her or not. She was afraid that her shrewd fifth sister would do something bad to her if she knew about it. She couldn't pass the message directly. She turned around, walked to the window, picked up a pen, wrote a few words, hung it for a while, folded it into a small note, and handed it to Qing. Go and pass this note to the people of the Ministry of Justice and ask them to pass it to Lord Qiu. The officers of the Ministry of Justice had their own rules, and they would never peep at such things. Moreover, since Qiu had sent someone here, this person should be Qiu's trusted subordinate. As for Qing Xiao Yanru was not worried. It was just a note that Qing couldn't see, and it didn't seem to be a message. She had to let this girl hear it. Besides, even if this girl saw it, she wouldn't know what she had written. How could an inferior servant girl know how to read? Qing left. When she stepped out of the door, she quickly opened the note in her hand, glanced at the words on it, and then folded it in her palm calmly. After that, she walked out of the door and headed for the gate of the courtyard. Standing by the window, Xiao Yanru saw Qing walk to the gate of the courtyard obediently. The half-closed gate prevented her from seeing what was going on outside, but she could vaguely hear Qing talking to the man. Then she saw Qing come in, close the gate, and hurriedly report to her. Only then did she sit in the chair inside with relief. It was impossible for Qing to see what was written on the note on the way. Miss, I've sent it out. He's gone. Qing came in and reported. I see. You can leave. Xiao Yanru waved her hand and said calmly. Yes. Qing left respectfully. When she got out of the door, she slightly raised the corners of her mouth and turned to leave. Shuqi came back around dinner time. Before she entered the room and reported to Xiao Yanru, she saw Qing come in happily with a food box. Shuqi couldn't help looking at her in surprise. It was still early for dinner, and Qing was too flattering. Seeing that Shuqi was here, Qing was very well behaved. After handing the food box to Shuchi, she retreated to the yard and continued to be an inferior servant girl, not fighting for food. However, she was just a third-class inferior servant girl now. Even if she wanted to fight for food, she couldn't win. Xiao Yanru was very satisfied with Qing Er's tactfulness. After Qing Er left, she asked, "How's it going?" "Rest assured, Mississippi. Everything went well." Shuchi came over with the food box and said as she took it out, "Accompany me to meet Chiu tonight." Xiao Yanru nodded and felt a little relieved. Recently, she had been feeling uneasy. Even though she had done that all the time in the past, she still felt a little worried. "Miss, it's better not to meet the first Miss Chiu. He seems to—" Shuchi stole a glance at Xiao Yanru. Seeing that she was not angry, she said in a low voice, "I think he seems to have a special feeling for you. I must deal with the matter of the two old maids. It seems that Chiu Yu is unwilling to let go without my word," Xiao Yanru said with a headache. Of course, she didn't want to have anything to do with Chiu Yu. However, if she didn't deal with the matter of the two old maids, it was very likely that Xiao Wanru would take advantage of it. Even if this possibility was not great, she still did not feel at ease. She had to deal with this matter as soon as possible, lest a long night brings many dreams and many troubles arise. Shuchi could have told Chiu Yu about it, but judging from Chiu Yu's attitude, she had to do it. She had written down the place and time of the appointment on the note. After meeting Chiu Yu in the evening, she would tell him about it and make it clear. It would be inconvenient for her to meet Chiu Yu in the future. As the night fell slowly, Xiao Yanru walked out of the main room slowly with Shuchi. Unexpectedly, she met Qing. Seeing Qing Er flattering and happy smile, Xiao Yanru stopped and asked, "Fifth sister, are you asleep?" "First miss, the fifth miss said that she would go out for a walk and hasn't come back yet," Qing Er reported with a smile. Xiao Yanru said with a trace of complacency on her face. As expected, Xiao Wanru couldn't sit still and should go to find Chu Qing at this time. Prince Yu's men should have been watching her for a long time. If they saw that she had a private meeting with Chu Qing, they would definitely find something on them. Foot injury? To hell with it. Leave the door open. I'll go out for a walk too, Xiao Yanru said with a smile. If she went out and came back, she should be faster than Xiao Wanru. When Xiao Wanru had an accident, she would definitely be in the yard. Chapter 590. The place where Xiao Yanru and Chiu Yu agreed to meet was in a Buddha hall not far away, which was the nearest Buddha hall to the courtyard. There were only 2 lamps hanging at the door of the medium-sized Buddha hall. In the dark night, the 2 lamps were not conspicuous. When Yujie helped Xiao Wanru to walk here, Xiao Wanru couldn't walk anymore. She reached out to press her foot and looked at the Buddha hall with some hesitation. "Miss, let's go in and have a seat. We'll leave in a while. It's not convenient for you to walk like this with your injured leg." Yujie reached out to support her and said. Xiao Wanru leaned most of her body on Yujie. Although she walked with a limp, no one would notice it if they didn't pay attention to it in the dark. Moreover, there was no one around. "It's too dark inside and we don't have a light." Xiao Wanru looked at the half-closed door and said, "Miss, we just want to have a rest and don't want to do anything. It's okay to sit inside. If you are afraid, I can tell you a few stories. After you have a rest, we'll leave and go back." Yujie helped Xiao Wanru and persuaded her. Xiao Wanru moved her half-hanging foot, thought for a while, and could only say, "Okay, let's sit for a while and leave." "Yes, we'll leave after sitting for a while. Don't worry, miss." Yujie helped Xiao Wanru into the dark hall and then disappeared inside. A man in black flashed by, looked at the hall, and then sneaked into the hall through the door where they entered without making any sound. They were just 2 girls from the inner yard. How could they possibly notice him? The black-clothed man lay on the beam of the hall and looked down. However, he did not notice that there was another shadow that followed him into the hall like a wisp of smoke. Then, the shadow hid behind another beam. It was very dark in the hall. Xiao Wanru held Yujie's hand and walked a few steps, and then she didn't want to go any further. Yujie helplessly helped her to sit down on a stool behind the gauze curtain. In the darkness, she heard Xiao Wanru's heavy breathing. She didn't know whether it was because of fear or the pain in her foot. There were layers of gauze curtains in front of the hall, and there was a gap in the corner of the hall. After Yujie helped Xiao Wanru sit down, she casually sat on a corner of the gauze curtain. She had originally come from the temple, so she felt very safe here. After sitting down, he smiled and said, "Miss, what kind of story would you like to hear?" At this time, Xiao Wanru's breathing had calmed down. After thinking for a while, she said softly, "Whatever, as long as it's something festive." "Whatever. Let me think about it." "Oh, I got it. Can you tell me a story about the wife of the top scholar?" Yujie asked with a smile. Her voice was particularly crisp in the dark. "Of course. Tell me about it." Xiao Wanru's voice sounded thin and soft in the hall. "Okay, then I'll tell you. Listen carefully." Yujie's voice was also very low. There were only 2 people in the hall, so it was very quiet. If her voice was loud, there would be some echoes. In the darkness of the night, it made people feel even more scared. Yujie spoke in a low voice and very slowly. It was unknown whether she wanted to recall something. From time to time, she stopped to think for a long time. During this period of time, there was a blank period. Fortunately, Xiao Wanru still listened very carefully and did not interrupt Yujie even when she didn't speak. In fact, this story was not good at all. It seemed that it couldn't be put together in a short time, so she had to think about it carefully. It was just a lie. It was just a lie to an ignorant miss from an aristocratic family. The 2 men in black on the beam didn't think so. Suddenly, footsteps came from outside the hall, immediately breaking the silence here. The person's footsteps were in a hurry, and it could be heard that he was coming here. The servant girl's voice immediately stopped. The master and the servant girl seemed to be a little flustered. The servant girl stood up and squeezed to her master's side. At this time, there was no light at night, so it was inevitable that the 2 women were a little flustered. The door of the hall had not been closed since they came in. This time, it was pushed open a little. A man strode in and walked straight forward after coming in. He walked to the Buddha statue in the middle, took out a match, illuminated the scene in front of him, and lit up a small Buddha lamp. Immediately, a place in front of the Buddha statue was lit. The man in black looked at the man below cautiously. At this time, his back was facing them, so he couldn't tell who he was at the moment. He didn't look back, just looked at the Buddha statue in front of him quietly, with his hands clasped behind his back, and didn't move at all. Didn't he come to meet 5th Miss Xiao in private? The man in black looked at the master and the servant girl behind the gauze in the corner. In the dim light, he vaguely saw that the master and the servant girl were hugging each other nervously. It didn't look like a man who came to meet 5th Miss Xiao in private. The man in black felt that he couldn't understand them. Didn't it mean that 5th Miss Xiao would be in trouble today? Either she or her servant girl would be in trouble today. But now that the man appeared, why didn't he come forward? Could it be that he was waiting for something? Or it seemed that it wasn't his master's order. The man in black lay motionlessly, glanced at the back of the man in front of the Buddha statue and the master and the servant girl in the corner with a thoughtful look in his eyes. At this time, he would naturally stay motionless and observe. There came another sound from the door. The footsteps were a little lighter than before, but there seemed to be more footsteps. There were 2 people. The man in black immediately heard the difference. Outside the door, Shuchi appeared first. Looking at Qiuyu, who turned around in surprise in the hall, she breathed a sigh of relief, and then made way for Xiao Yanru to walk in slowly. The man in black on the beam frowned tightly. This scene didn't match any of the scenes he had imagined. It seemed that it was not the 5th Miss Xiao who wanted to meet Commandery Prince Qing in private, but the 1st Miss Xiao who wanted to meet Qiuyu in private. The man in black knew the person below, and his master had some secret reports about this person. The left assistant minister of the Ministry of Justice, who was also the legitimate youngest son of Earl Liang, was also a well-known child from an aristocratic family in the capital city. He had a good family background and a good character. Although he was serving in the Ministry of Justice now, it was not because of his father's connections, but because of his real ability. It was said that it was the emperor's order. Because his identity was not bad and he was quite capable, his master took notice of him. First Miss. Seeing Xiao Yanru walk in slowly, Qiu Yu took 2 steps forward excitedly and bowed to her first. Xiao Yanru stopped and also bowed to Qiu Yu. "Your Excellency." Qiu Yu coughed in a low voice, stepped aside, and gestured with his hand, "First Miss, please." The light inside was much clearer. Xiao Yanru hesitated for a moment, but still walked inside. Compared with the dim light outside, she preferred to walk inside. At least, she could see Qiu Yu's expression and behavior clearly. When she arrived in front of the altar, she turned around and said directly, "Your Excellency, the 2 old maids actually had nothing to do with me, but—" Speaking of this, she looked at Shuqi, who had followed her in. Shuqi took 2 steps forward, knelt down in front of Qiu Yu with a plop, kowtowed heavily, and then raised her head and said, "Your Excellency, this was originally the 5th Miss's business and had nothing to do with the 1st Miss, but it has something to do with me. I hope you can spare them for the sake of the 1st Miss and the 5th Miss." "What does it have to do with you?" Qiu Yu was stunned, and then his face darkened. As a member of the Ministry of Justice, he had a sharp reaction to cases. Xiao Yanru didn't say a word and just raised her eyes to look at him. Qiu Yu immediately realized that his face was too cold. He hurriedly took a deep breath, relaxed, and asked gently, "What the hell is going on? Did you ask the 2 old maids to hurt the 5th Miss?" "Your Excellency, how dare I? I wouldn't dare to do such a thing even if I had eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall." Shuqi shook her hands and explained eagerly. "Then what the hell is it?" Qiu Yu frowned. He came here today with the intention of meeting Xiao Yanru in private and asking about their relationship. It was really not a good thing for him to question his sweetheart's maid. However, since Shuqi had said this, he had to ask about it. "Your Excellency, I didn't know the 2 old maids at first, but after I came back, my grandma came to me and said that the 2 old maids are related to me. One is the sister of my first aunt, and the other is the grandaunt of my second aunt. The matter between them is just a personal grudge, and they don't dare to do anything serious. She asked me to ask my miss to solve it. My miss is kind enough to take me here to make it clear." Shuqi wiped her eyes with a handkerchief, and her eyes turned red. She choked with sobs and said, "It's my 2 relatives' fault. Both of them are from the countryside and don't know the rules. They beat and scold people whenever they want. It seems that they deserve it. But it's impossible for them to hurt the 5th Mississippi." Qiu Yu had investigated the matter of the 2 old maids. Although he felt that something was wrong, he didn't think it was a big deal. After all, no one was hurt. The only one, Xiao Wanru, said that she had hurt her foot. In Qiu Yu's opinion, she just pretended to be so. If she was hurt, why didn't she go back and walk such a long way? He looked up at Xiao Yanru, only to see that Xiao Yanru also bowed deeply to him and said, "Your Excellency, I hope you can find out the matter and let them go down the mountain as soon as possible. Although Shuqi is my maid, I used to treat her like a sister. If she is really scolded by her family, I will also feel sad. As for the 5th sister, she also said that you should deal with it." Her words made Qiu Yu fall silent for a while. It was indeed not a big deal. As the victim, Xiao Wanru didn't force him to deal with it. It was not difficult for him to let them go. Seeing that the beauty came to plead for a maid beside her, Qiu Yu felt more and more pity for the person in front of him. She was indeed a kind-hearted and beautiful girl. He couldn't help liking her. "I'll deal with it right away. Since it's just a small misunderstanding, it can't be a big deal. First Miss Xiao, don't worry." Qiu Yu reached out to help Xiao Yanru. Xiao Yanru had stood up alertly. Qiu Yu coughed in a low voice and his face turned slightly red. It was just a pretext, and what he was going to say next was the key. Chapter 591. First Miss. Qiu Yu coughed in a low voice again, looked at Xiao Yanru attentively with affection, and said, "First Miss, you are talented, beautiful, kind, and gentle. I wonder, if you can, Your Excellency, since we've finished talking, I'll leave with Shuqi." Xiao Yanru suddenly pulled Shuqi up, interrupted Qiu Yu, and turned to leave. "First Miss, please wait a minute. How could Qiu Yu let go of such a great opportunity?" He took 2 steps in a hurry and stood in front of Xiao Yanru. Afraid that he might not have time to speak, he had no time to hesitate at this time and said hurriedly, First Miss, if I propose to your mansion, Your Excellency, please be careful with your words. Xiao Yanru interrupted him and said, Your Excellency, as a descendant of an aristocratic family, you should know that there are some things you should say and some things you shouldn't say. If you say something you shouldn't say, you may even ruin someone else's reputation. Please forgive me, First Mississippi. I really have no other choice. I'm going back in a few days. If I don't know First Miss's mind, how dare I propose to you? Please tell me clearly. If First Miss likes Commandery Prince Qing, I have nothing to say and won't pester you. No one else will know what you said today. Chiu Yu said anxiously. Although his face was flushed, he blurted out the words. He spoke so quickly and urgently that Xiao Yanru couldn't stop him even if she wanted to. Your Excellency, there's nothing between me and Commandery Prince Qing or you. Please behave yourself. Xiao Yanru took a step back, lowered her head, and said with a dignified look. Since Chiu Yu said so, she had to answer him. Now she couldn't leave cleanly even if she wanted to. The meaning of her refusal was very obvious. Although Chiu Yu had thought about it, he refused her sincerely now. Heartbroken, he took a step back and staggered. He fixed his eyes on Xiao Yanru and said bitterly, I know that I can't compare with Commandery Prince Qing. I'm not a descendant of the royal family, and I'm not even the lineal eldest son, so I can't inherit the title of nobility. But I will try my best. First Miss? I will definitely treat First Miss well. He had buried these words in his heart and felt uncomfortable if he didn't say them out. Your Excellency Chiu. Xiao Yanru blushed and said angrily. First Miss, I don't blame you for choosing Commandery Prince Qing. No matter what, he is a descendant of the royal family and has royal blood running through his veins. If you follow him, it will be his blessing. When you were together in the maple leaf forest, I could see that you two had feelings for each other. If I hadn't appeared at that time, you two would have traveled together. The rest are the two of you. In appearing there was an accident. Chiu Yu lowered his head and said in a low voice without looking at Xiao Yanru. At this time, he was completely immersed in the pain of being rejected by Xiao Yanru. The trivial things that were not enough to explain anything before were magnified infinitely. He felt that he was really stupid at that time. He clearly saw that the two of them were a couple who loved each other, but he interfered. When he thought of Xiao Yanru's rebellious behavior when he met her before, he understood everything. He turned around and staggered out of the room. In the end, his wishful thinking was in vain. Your Excellency Chiu. Xiao Yanru's angry voice came from behind, but he turned a deaf ear to it and continued to walk forward, feeling disheartened. As expected, the first miss of Duke Xing's mansion, the first beauty in the capital city, was not someone he could covet. Your Excellency Chiu, there's nothing between me and Commandery Prince Qing. Xiao Yanru took a few steps forward and said angrily to Chiu Yu. Chiu Yu stopped and slowly turned around. The expression on his face changed from sadness to surprise. He suddenly turned around, grabbed Xiao Yanru's hand, and said excitedly, First Miss, you said that you don't like Commandery Prince Qing, but you like... Because of excitement, he couldn't even speak for a moment. Seeing that the situation was not good, Shuqi hurriedly came over and pulled Xiao Yanru out, while saying angrily, Your Excellency, if you are a sensible person, don't say anything. Our First Miss can't decide everything by herself. If you meet our First Miss in private, you will ruin her reputation. Do you want to force our First Miss to lose her chastity? Shuqi said and ran towards the palace with her servants. Chiu Yu took 2 steps forward and wanted to catch up with them. But after hearing Shuqi's words, he stopped and reached out his hand, but finally stopped. Xiao Yanru and her servant had walked to the door and then disappeared at the door. As the footsteps faded away, they should have left. Chiu Yu had been standing quietly and then breathed a sigh of relief. In any case, the first Miss Xiao did not say that she liked Chu Qing. She reprimanded him because he was rude. In that case, it could be said that the first Miss Xiao had a good impression of him, but she was forced to be polite. In this way, he still had a chance. Since the 2 old maids were released by her maid, he would naturally let them go. However, there was still the matter of the Ministry of Justice and the Baiyun Taoist Temple. Although he was not in charge of it, he could volunteer to help. when Shichi would definitely be willing to help. With such a case related to Duke Xing's mansion, he could still meet the first Miss Xiao. After meeting her a few times, she might fall in love with him. Hearing this, Qiu Yu seemed to be relieved. His expression gradually became better. He turned around, walked to the Buddha platform pass, blew out the Buddha lamp, and then turned around and strode away. After his footsteps left, the master and the servant, who had been waiting in the corner for a long time, each breathed a sigh of relief. "Miss, does the first miss like him or not?" Yujia's voice was very low, but it could be heard clearly in the dark hall. "I don't know. I can't tell," Xiao Wanru said with some hesitation in her voice. "I think the first miss likes him." Yujia's voice was a little jumpy, which made her sound like a maid who did not know the rules. She reached out to help Xiao Wanru get up and said, "Don't talk nonsense." Xiao Wanru rebuked her. "I'm not talking nonsense. It's true. When we were in the Maple Leaf Forest, the first miss, Commandery Prince Qing, and Lord Qiu enjoyed the scenery together. The three of them were always happy. They left you in the pavilion to rest, and the first miss left by herself. Don't you like him?" Yujia said unconvinced. "You can't say that she likes him very much. How can a woman like several men?" Xiao Wanru reached out to pat Yujia's hand and said, "If you talk nonsense again, I'll send you back to the mansion." Yes, miss, I don't dare to do it again. I just guessed it. The first miss is so beautiful and has long passed the age of engagement. Naturally, there are many people who love her. But why doesn't she get engaged? Can't she pick out a man after choosing for so long? Yujia helped Xiao Wanru to the door. She begged for mercy while making wild guesses. It could be seen that she was a spoiled little girl. The pair of master and servant also slowly disappeared behind the door of the hall. The first man in black moved. In a flash, he flashed out of the hall and chased after the pair of master and servant. After he left, the second man in black also flashed away, but he did not stare at him. He flashed back in another direction and went directly out of the Yuhui nunnery. His task was to prevent the fifth Miss Xiao from getting into trouble in the hall. Since nothing happened in the hall, it was not his business. When Xiao Wanru returned to her courtyard, she saw Xiao Yenru and her servant in the corridor. "Where did you go, fifth sister?" The pair of master and servant seemed to be standing in the corridor and chatting. Seeing Xiao Wanru enter the courtyard, Xiao Yenru came to Xiao Wanru and asked with a smile when she got close. Her eyes fell on Xiao Wanru's feet, which were inconvenient for her to walk. Most of her weight was on Yujia, but even so, it was still inconvenient for her to walk. "Let's go out for a walk after dinner," Xiao Wanru said with a faint smile. As she said that, she helped Yujia and wanted to go in, as if she didn't want to talk more with Xiao Yenru. "Fifth sister, your leg is injured. How can you just walk around?" When I asked Shuchi to go down the mountain, I asked her to invite an Imperial physician. He should be able to go up the mountain tomorrow to check on your leg. If you are really injured, what should we do? Xiao Yenru said with a smile, looking concerned and considerate. "Big sister, I don't need it." Xiao Wanru said with a cold face, "I've almost recovered." "How can it be almost recovered? It's only been a day." "Sister, you should go to have a rest first. It's not easy to invite an imperial physician of the royal family. He may come tomorrow with a female physician after being invited today. It's much more convenient than other physicians." Looking at Xiao Wanru's legs, Xiao Yenru said with an increasingly friendly smile. Her smile seemed to be really considerate of Xiao Wanru. After saying that, she turned around and went back to her main room with Shuchi, leaving Xiao Wanru standing at the door of the silence room with a displeased face. "Miss, let's go in and have a rest." Yujia helped Xiao Wanru and said. Xiao Wanru nodded, took a deep breath, and then helped Yujia into the silence room. In the courtyard, Qing looked out of the door and said to herself, "It's so late. Where have the two misses gone? They should be going to bed now. I'm so sleepy." After saying that, she yawned, closed the door, put down the big broom in her hand, and turned into a wing room in the corner. The lights in the courtyard went out one by one. It seemed that everyone had fallen asleep. The man in black guarding outside looked at the darkness in the courtyard and knew that there would be no more trouble. He disappeared from the roof in a flash. He had to go out of the Yuhui nunnery and go down the mountain to report what he had seen tonight to his master. Although he felt that these things were not serious, his master always had to analyze a lot of things. If he didn't report in detail, he would be in serious trouble if something really happened. Moreover, didn't he say that the fifth miss was going to have a private meeting today? Why did she look more like the first miss? But what if it was the first miss? The secret guard's heart trembled and he felt that he couldn't think about it anymore. This kind of thing was not something he, a secret guard, should think about. After coming out of the Yuhui nunnery, he found a horse tied in the dark, jumped on it, and rushed down the mountain. Then he went to a courtyard at the foot of the mountain. His master was not in the capital city today. Otherwise, he would not be able to return to the capital city at this time. The city gate would not be opened at this time. In Chu Liuyue's courtyard, after hearing the secret guard's detailed account of the matter, Chu Liuyue's face darkened, and his eyes were dark and cold. Did Xiao Yanru really have other thoughts? Chapter 592. The imperial physician arrived at noon the next day, followed by Nanny Xing, who served Madam of Duke Xing, and a female physician with the imperial physician. Hearing that the patient was the granddaughter of and great elder princess, imperial physician Chu specially invited a female physician from the imperial palace. There were female physicians in the imperial palace. In fact, they were some palace maids who were sent to the imperial palace at a very young age to learn from the imperial physicians and serve several imperial physicians. There were not many female physicians who could really learn, but it was much more convenient to have female physicians. The imperial palace was full of the emperor's concubines. Some diseases couldn't be diagnosed without seeing them with their own eyes, so there was the position of female physician. Nanny Xing went to see Xiao Yanru first, and then went to Xiao Wanru's silence room accompanied by Xiao Yanru. However, when she was at the door, she was stopped by Yu Jie and Chu Lu. First Miss is still copying Buddhist scriptures. We can't disturb her at this time. Yu Jie stepped forward and bowed to Xiao Yanru and said. Xiao Yanru frowned. Although her voice was soft, there was a touch of displeasure in it. Didn't I tell your miss yesterday that an imperial physician would come to treat her today? Why is she copying Buddhist scriptures again? Miss has been copying Buddhist scriptures since this morning and asked us not to disturb her. First Miss, please wait a moment. Chu Lu also came forward and bowed to Xiao Yanru, and then said in embarrassment. Xiao Wanru had such a characteristic that she didn't allow anyone to disturb her when she was chanting and copying Buddhist scriptures. The two maids knew it, so did Xiao Yanru. Wasn't she worried that her injury would be discovered by the imperial physician? Xiao Yanru sneered in her heart, but she didn't show any anger on her face. She said to Imperial Physician Chu behind her, Imperial Physician Chu, please take a rest in my room. It happens that I also have a few questions about medical skills to ask you. Imperial Physician Chu looked at the closed door of the silence room and then at Xiao Yanru, who was polite and even mentioned medical skills in order to be more tactful. Both of them were misses of Duke Xing's mansion, but why were they so different? One of them was arrogant and even refused to see the imperial physician invited from the imperial palace, while the other was kind and dignified and took care of everyone's dignity. Sure enough, the first Miss Xiao deserved her reputation throughout the capital city. They were waiting in Xiao Yanru's main room. Even though she was guarding Xiao Wanru, Xiao Yanru was very polite. She first greeted the elders in the mansion to Nanny Xing, and then asked about her brothers and sisters of the same generation. Hearing that everyone was fine, the smile on her face became more and more gentle. After that, he smiled at Imperial Physician Chu. Fifth younger sister sprained her ankle yesterday and I don't know the exact situation. I'm really worried, so I've troubled Imperial Physician to make a trip over. If fifth younger sister's ankle is completely healed, I'll naturally thank you heavily. How did fifth young miss injure her foot? Imperial Physician Chu asked with a smile. She said that she accidentally twisted it, but I didn't see the details. Yesterday, 2 old maids accidentally hurt my fifth sister when they quarreled. My fifth sister was very angry at that time. It happened that the officials of the Ministry of Justice were there, so she specially asked them to punish the 2 old maids. Xiao Yinru told her what had happened yesterday with a smile. Of course, she didn't mention Qiu Yu and Chu Qing. Imperial physician Chu frowned and became increasingly pessimistic about the fifth miss of Duke Xing's mansion. She sent 2 passers-by to the Ministry of Justice just for a minor injury. It could be seen that the fifth Miss Xiao was a bad person. First Miss, didn't you see the fifth Miss's injury? Another day has passed. I don't know what will happen to her. Nanny Sheng was very worried. Don't worry, Nanny. It's not a big deal. She just fell down yesterday, so the fifth Miss can continue to enjoy the scenery. Moreover, she went out for a walk when she came back in the evening and came back later than my master. Shuqi said straightforwardly. Don't talk nonsense. Fifth sister just had dinner and went out for a walk because she was bored. Xiao Yinru rebuked her in a low voice. Yes, first miss, I was wrong. Shuqi lowered her head and said aggrievedly. Imperial physician Chu saw all of this and became increasingly pessimistic about the fifth Mississippi. Her arrogant temper was really not good. Even the favored concubines in the Imperial palace were a little more restrained than her. She could walk again and again after spraining her ankle. It seemed that she was not seriously injured or not injured at all. Imperial physician Chu suddenly felt that it was unnecessary for him to come here at all. Even if he came here, it would be useless. The fifth Miss Xiao just wanted to put on an act. This kind of pretense had happened a lot in the Imperial palace. It was just that the women in the Imperial palace pretended to be in order to compete for favor. But he didn't know why the fifth Miss Xiao came here. Could it be that she wanted to punish 2 innocent old maids? She was too narrow-minded. Or she was a little vicious. Imperial physician Chu, my servant girl talked nonsense rudely, which made you laugh. Although my fifth sister doesn't let me see her injury, it's because she is not very close to me. She has been in the Yuhui nunnery for many years and is not very close to people in the mansion. I specially came up the mountain to accompany her because I'm afraid that she will still be unfamiliar with people when she goes down the mountain and returns to the mansion in the future. Xiao Yinru explained with a smile and a sincere look. Imperial physician Chu nodded repeatedly and thought that the first Miss Xiao was both talented and beautiful. Her intention was much kinder than others. Seeing Imperial physician Chu nodding repeatedly, Xiao Yinru felt complacent and picked up the teacup to cover the sneer on her face. No matter how beautiful Xiao Wanru was, it didn't matter. A vicious woman who was used to putting on an act and stirring up trouble was not someone the Imperial family would like. As an Imperial physician valued highly by the Emperor, Imperial physician Chu could still speak in front of the Emperor. He didn't need too many people to know about it. Only the Imperial family knew about it. Whether it was Prince Yu or Prince Zhou, Xiao Wanru could not think about it. Or even if she wanted to enter the Imperial family, she could only choose someone like Commandery Prince Qing, who was not favored and marginalized. In fact, she still hoped that Xiao Wanru and Commandery Prince Qing could be a couple. Of course, it was the kind of lowly thing where the one who ran away with the other became a concubine. This was also an important reason why she wanted Xiao Wanru and Chu Qing to fall in love with each other. Xiao Wanru, who had stayed in her boudoir for a long time and had never seen a man in the past, was easily fooled when she saw a handsome man falling in love with her, even though she had some means. As long as Xiao Wanru fell in love with Chu Qing, she could plan a lot of things in the future. Thinking of this, she wondered what happened to Xiao Wanru yesterday. She waited in the corridor yesterday because she wanted to hear the news of Xiao Wanru's accident as early as possible. But when she came back, she didn't see it. Could it be that although Xiao Wanru went out, she didn't meet Chu Qing and only asked her maid to send a note to him? If that was the case, it would be good. Chu Qing happened to be interested in her, so she would definitely instigate Chu Qing to seduce her. Chu Qing's position as the commandery prince was not favored by everyone. If Xiao Wanru married him and became his concubine, she could even ask Chu Qing to give her away. Concubines were just playthings to begin with. Chu Qing didn't seem to be someone who was easy to deal with. If there were great benefits, it would be a piece of cake for him to give a concubine to someone else. She would never let Xiao Wanru fall into a good situation. At the first sight of Xiao Wanru, she knew that Xiao Wanru was her opponent. Xiao Wanru looked like a scourge. She wanted to make Xiao Wanru lose the possibility of competing with her before Xiao Wanru went down the mountain and kill everything as soon as possible. Even if she made a big noise, so what? She was not afraid of making a big noise. She was only afraid of making a small noise. He put down the teacup in his hand and gently she wiped the corner of her mouth and smiled. Just as she was about to speak, she saw someone walking over from the door. "First miss, our master is ready. Please come over." Yu Jie suddenly appeared at the door, bowed deeply to Xiao Yanru, who was inside, and said, "Okay, please come with me, Imperial Physician Chu." Xiao Yanru said with a gentle look. She stood up first, not angry at Xiao Wanru for making her wait a little longer. She led them to the door of the silence room, where Chu Lu had been waiting for a long time. Seeing them come over, she bowed and made way. Xiao Yanru walked in with Imperial Physician Chu. The huge screen was folded and divided the silence room into two. "Big sister, forgive me for being injured and not being able to get up." Behind the screen, the girl's voice was elegant and moving, which flowed through everyone's heart like flowing water. Imperial Physician Chu looked at the screen in surprise. He didn't see her but only heard her voice. He felt that this fifth Miss Xiao should be a rare beauty. What's more, her voice didn't sound like the kind of woman who was deliberately unreasonable. "Fifth sister, you are too polite. Imperial Physician Chu is the best doctor in the Imperial Institute of Medicine. Yesterday, I asked someone to go down the mountain and invite him here. Fifth sister, is it convenient for you to let the female physician brought by Imperial Physician Chu treat your injury?" Xiao Yanru said with a generous smile, turned to the screen, and said softly to Xiao Wanru, who was lying on the bed. She said it very politely and took everyone's face into consideration. It was really impossible to find fault with her. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. As long as she was in front of others, the first Miss Xiao's behavior and manners were completely flawless. She really deserved to be called talented and beautiful. "Big sister, in fact, it's not very good. Forget it." Xiao Wanru shook her head, retracted her feet in front of her, touched them, and refused in a tactful way. "Alas, how can I not see the doctor when I'm injured? I don't know how your injury has been since yesterday. I didn't sleep well last night because I was thinking about your foot. Since the Imperial Physician has taken the trouble to come here, I can't let him come here in vain." Xiao Yanru said, "Fifth sister, how can you hide your illness for fear of treatment? But I have asked Huiding Nun to treat my injury yesterday, so I don't need to treat it today." Xiao Wanru said weakly. "Huiding Nun just knows a little about medical skills. How can she treat my injury accurately?" Xiao Yanru said disapprovingly. When she was on the mountain, Huiding Nun was already there. At that time, she was not the disciple of Mingqiu Nun, so she only suffered from the simplest headache and fever. She could treat the minor illnesses of the nuns in the Yuhui nunnery. But, well, fifth sister, don't resist anymore. Imperial Physician Chu, can you ask the female physician to come in and treat my injury? Xiao Yanru directly made the decision for Xiao Wanru this time and said the latter half of the sentence to Imperial Physician Chu outside the screen. Imperial Physician Chu nodded and motioned the female physician to come in. The female physician, carrying a small medicine box for dressing wounds, turned around the screen and came in. Chapter 593. Seeing the female physician come in, Xiao Yanru made way for her. The female physician stepped forward, put down the small medicine box in her hand, and said, "Fifth miss, you've overstepped." "You're welcome," Xiao Wanru said lightly. The female physician raised her head and looked at Xiao Wanru. After being stunned for a moment, she hurriedly lowered her head to hide the amazement in her eyes. She had been working as an assistant for imperial physicians in the Imperial Palace and had seen all kinds of beauties, but she was still shocked when she saw the fifth miss at the first sight. No one in the Imperial Palace could compare with such a beauty. Yu Jie carefully lifted Xiao Wanru's foot, rolled up her trousers, and revealed her bandaged ankle. The complacency on Xiao Yanru's face slowly faded, and she couldn't help frowning. Looking at her tightly bandaged ankle, she suddenly had a very bad feeling. She couldn't help clenching the handkerchief in her hand and pursing her lips. The female doctor calmed herself down and loosened the knot. After she pulled it loose, she took off the white cloth that was tightly wrapped around the wound. The swollen ankle looked like a steamed bun, which was frighteningly red and swollen. Xiao Yinru's face changed. "Miss, why didn't you get better after applying the ointment? Why did it get worse instead?" Yu Jie exclaimed in a low voice. The female physician frowned, reached out to wipe Xiao Wanru's red and swollen ankle, smeared the ointment on her hand, and then put it to her nose to smell it. "Are you injured? How is your injury?" Hearing the voice inside, Imperial physician Chu asked slowly. "Very badly injured." The female physician reached out to press Xiao Wanru's wound and answered as she pressed, "She should have sprained her ankle before. Someone has corrected it later, but she is seriously injured and needs to have a good rest. As for the ointment..." The female physician paused for a moment. "What's wrong with the ointment? It was given by our first Mississippi. She said it was the best ointment in the Imperial Palace. Is it useless?" Yu Jie said with a crying voice. She reached out to take a bottle of ointment from the table beside her and handed it to the female physician. Xiao Yinru's face changed dramatically. She was about to reach out, but she immediately restrained her panic and said, "How could it be useless? I also used it before." The female physician took the ointment and smelled it. Then she sniffed it with the ointment on her hand and said to Yu Jie, "Take it to Imperial physician Chu." She was just the most ordinary female physician. There were some things that Imperial physician Chu could say, but she didn't dare to say. Yu Jie hurriedly turned out of the screen and handed the ointment in her hand to Imperial physician Chu. Imperial physician Chu took it and dipped his finger into it. He put it in front of his nose and smelled it. Then his face changed greatly. "Is this the ointment that Fifth Miss is applying?" "Yes, Fifth Miss's foot is smeared with this. Your ankle is badly swollen. If you keep using this kind of medicine, your foot will not only not recover, but also, the wound will fester and even rot." The female physician looked at the wound on Xiao Wanru's foot, which was really frightening. Xiao Yenru's foot and said, "Xiao Yenru who was, Xiao Yinru," Yu Jie said. "Sister," the female physician said, "Xiao Yenru I, Miss, she Yanner she, and, Ba, I, she I, big sister why?" Xiao Wanru raised her eyes and looked at Xiao Yinru, who was in front of the bed. "First Miss, you brought this ointment to my master. Why is it getting worse and worse? First Miss, you have always said that this ointment is very useful. Why does it make my master disabled and rotted?" Yu Jie said in a crying voice and finished Xiao Wanru's unfinished words. Nanny Sheng, who was standing outside the screen, also looked terrible. She wanted to interrupt, but she couldn't help her at the moment. She just rubbed her hands anxiously and began to sweat on her forehead. Didn't the first miss say that she could definitely peel off Xiao Wanru's skin this time? How did she end up like this now? How could it be possible? This is the ointment from the mansion. It's from Shuqi in the Imperial Palace. Show it to Imperial physician Chu. Xiao Yinru said in a panic. "Yes, I'll get it right away." Shuqi ran out in a hurry. After a while, she came back with a bottle of ointment and handed it to Imperial physician Chu. "Imperial physician, please have a look at it. Is it the same as the Fifth Mrs. Ointment?" Imperial physician Chu reached out to take it, put it in front of his nose and sniffed it. Then he also took out some and put it on his hand. After looking at it carefully, he said, "This bottle of ointment is good. The Fifth Mrs. Ointment was originally good, but later it was mixed with something, so that the ointment is not only bad, but also may make the injury worse. First Miss, are these 2 bottles of ointment yours?" "They are mine. I asked Shuqi to go to the mansion to get them. At that time, both my fifth sister and I were injured, but... Xiao Yinru seemed to be stunned and stammered involuntarily. "Imperial physician Chu, who wants to hurt my master? Who can't tolerate my master? My master has hidden in the Yuhui nunnery and seldom comes out. What else can she do?" Yu Jie looked at Imperial physician Chu and said angrily with red eyes, "I really don't know." Imperial physician Chu said helplessly. As an imperial physician, he could treat illnesses, but it didn't mean that he could solve cases. There were 2 bottles of the same ointment, and both of them were awarded by the Imperial Palace. However, one bottle was good, while the other bottle was harmful. The harmful bottle was given by the first Miss Xiao. Although Imperial physician Chu thought that the first Miss Xiao was unlikely to do such a thing, it was really in front of him. First Miss, I remember that these 2 bottles of ointment are the ones you gave me before, right? They seem to be kept in old madam's private warehouse at that time. Could it be that someone wants to hurt old madam? Nanny Sheng rolled her eyes and said loudly in a hurry. Find out. We must find out who wants to hurt me and my 5th sister. Xiao Yanru said anxiously and said to Xiao Wanru with red eyes, 5th sister, we will definitely find out the truth. You and I are both on the mountain. We don't know who wants to hurt us like this. Few people can enter Zuping's private warehouse. It's impossible that we can't find out the truth. Xiao Wanru said with a cold smile. She intended to protect Xiao Yanru even if she wanted to push old madam of Duke Xing's mansion out. Old madam was an elder. Even if something really happened to her, she couldn't do anything to her. No wonder Xiao Yanru could live like a fish in water even in the Imperial Palace in the last life. Her ability to turn black into white was not something that ordinary people could have. All the sins belonged to others. She was still the spotless and pure first Miss Xiao. However, if one often walked by the river, one's shoes would get wet. She would slowly destroy the good reputation she had accumulated little by little. Big sister, you gave me this ointment. You said it was very useful and asked me to use it when I was injured. But now you said that this ointment was drugged in the mansion. Big sister has nothing to do with this matter. Xiao Wanru's face looked very cold, and her bright watery eyes were full of deep coldness. She looked at Xiao Yanru, who was lying on the bed quietly, and then smiled gently and said, Big sister, whatever you say. Anyway, someone in the mansion will take the blame, just like what happened in the Baiyun Taoist temple before. Her words sounded gentle, but the meaning in her words was very direct, which almost made Xiao Yanru feel embarrassed. She didn't expect that Xiao Wanru would directly tear off the veil of affection between them in front of the imperial physician and the female physician. She really panicked for a moment. 5th younger sister, this matter will be investigated thoroughly. I will never let 5th younger sister suffer for nothing. You have to believe me. Believe that our mansion will definitely. Xiao Yanru promised. Xiao Wanru closed her eyes slightly and said tiredly, Big sister, stop talking. I'm going to have a rest. I will ask my maternal grandma to investigate this matter. 5th Miss, this is the matter of our Duke Xing's mansion. Even if there is something wrong, it is our mansion's business. How can we let great elder princess intervene? Nanny Sheng said disapprovingly outside. Xiao Wanru remained silent, as if she didn't hear what Nanny Sheng said. Her face was pale, her eyes were closed, and she ignored Nanny Sheng. After the female physician finished applying the ointment for Xiao Wanru, she looked at the beautiful and pale face of the 5th Miss Xiao and couldn't help feeling pity for her. The 5th Miss Xiao in front of her was indeed an unfavored miss, as the rumors said. She didn't know what Duke Xing's mansion was thinking. They didn't dote on this noble miss and even sent someone to harm her. It was obvious that someone had harmed her in the matter of the ointment. The matter of the Baiyun Taoist temple was widely spread outside and also in the palace. The matter of Xiushui Taoist priest had a long history. Su had been to the Baiyun Taoist temple before she entered the palace. Therefore, many people were concerned about this matter, for fear that they would accidentally get into trouble. The more people paid attention to it, the more they knew that old madam of Duke Xing's mansion wanted the 5th Miss Xiao to shave and become a nun. It was said that she forced her to shave and then asked Xiushui Taoist priest to take her to the Baiyun Taoist temple. If the old madam hadn't found that the evil Taoist priest was a man, the 5th Miss Xiao would have been ruined. It took a lot of intelligence to survive in the palace. They might not be very clear about the twists and turns, but it was certain that old madam of Duke Xing's mansion was unkind to the 5th Miss Xiao. As for the young madam of Duke Xing's mansion who later pushed out that the young madam of Duke Yong's mansion, few people really believed it. She was just a scapegoat. Now the answer shown in the female physician's mind was that the first miss of Duke Xing was also beating the scapegoat. This time, she didn't know who in Duke Xing's mansion was more unlucky. Stealing a glance at the famous beauty in the capital city, the female physician suddenly had the idea that she was a vicious beauty. Nanny Xing, go down the mountain now and ask Grandma to investigate this matter. You must find out the person who has evil intentions against us. Xiao Yinru said loudly. Yes, I'll go down the mountain now. Nanny Xing understood and hurried out. Miss, I'll report to the great elder princess and ask her to make a decision for you. Chu Lu glanced angrily at Nanny Xing, who had run to the door, and said, Go ahead. Xiao Wanru waved her hand coldly. Chu Lu turned around and rushed out of the screen. She first reached out to grab the 2 ointment bottles in front of Imperial Physician Chu, and then hurriedly chased after them. Fifth sister. Xiao Yinru hurriedly stopped her. Big sister, I'm tired and very uncomfortable. Can you stop talking, big sister? Xiao Wanru said softly, but the meaning in her words made Xiao Yinru blush. She gritted her teeth hard, suppressed the grievance in her heart, and forced a gentle smile. I was thoughtless. Fifth sister, take a rest first. I'll accompany the Imperial physician. Chapter 594. Xiao Yinru knew that she couldn't be flustered or angry at this time. She had to play the role of a good sister who stood by Xiao Wanru's side. Seeing the female physician wrap Xiao Wanru's injured foot again, Xiao Yinru followed her to the outside of the screen. Outside the screen, Imperial Physician Chu looked at Xiao Yinru with a little confusion. It was obvious that he also suspected Xiao Yinru. However, he had been in the Imperial Palace for a long time and was very shrewd. After a glance, he turned his head away. Imperial Physician Chu, what should we do now? Where is the ointment? Xiao Yinru looked at Imperial Physician Chu's empty hands with her face changing dramatically and asked. The maid took it away just now. Imperial Physician Chu said indifferently. It was not harmful for him to take away the 2 bottles of ointment. It seemed strange, so he didn't want to get involved in it. Since the ointment has been applied, leave the ointment here. After applying it every day and resting for a few more months, you should be able to recover. Xiao Yinru bit her lip and glared at Shuqi fiercely. Her eyes were so cold that they seemed to want to eat her. Shuqi was so scared that she hurriedly lowered her head with a pale face. Chu Lu rushed out too fast just now, and Yu Jia stood in front of her. When she saw it, Chu Lu had already rushed to the door. She couldn't catch up with her even if she wanted to. Fifth miss, just take good care of yourself. We'll leave now. Sensing the cold atmosphere in the air, the Imperial Physician Chu said to the female physician who had finished packing. Thank you, Imperial Physician Chu. Yu Jia, please send Imperial Physician Chu off for me. Xiao Wanru's soft voice came from behind the screen. Fifth miss, you're welcome. Imperial Physician Chu said, Fifth miss, you'd better leave the maid to have a good rest. You should also be careful of your injury. Although it has been healed, you're still injured and it's easy for you to get into trouble again. If it's not necessary, you'd better not walk around at will. After saying that, he glanced at Xiao Yinru, who was standing aside. The first Miss Xiao had said that after the 5th Miss was injured, she not only walked a long way to enjoy the scenery, but also couldn't rest at night and ran out again. He had believed in her words before, but at this time he suddenly realized that she was too deliberate, as if she was telling him that the 5th Miss Xiao was pretending to be injured. No matter how he looked at it, the first Miss Xiao did not seem innocent. However, this kind of thing had nothing to do with him. He was just an imperial physician who was invited up the mountain. It was better to say what he saw and tell the truth. Just now, of the 2 servants, one went to find old Madame of Duke Xing's mansion, and the other went to find and great elder princess. It was not easy to let it go. Imperial Physician Chu also regretted it this time. If he had known that there were so many twists and turns, he should not have promised Duke Xing to go there at that time. Thank you, Imperial Physician Chu. Xiao Wanru said. Imperial Physician Chu left with the female physician, and Yu Jie sent them to the corridor. She looked at the house and revealed a worried expression. She bowed deeply to Imperial Physician Chu. Imperial Physician Chu, I originally wanted to send you to the door, but there's no one by our young Mrs. side now. I'm afraid something might happen, so I asked Chinger to send you off. After that, he nodded and called Chinger, who was in the courtyard, over. Chinger responded and came over. Imperial Physician Chu and the female physician remembered that the first Miss Xiao and her servant were still in the room, but the fifth Miss Xiao was alone. After looking at each other, they nodded to Yu Jie, indicating that she could go back. After Imperial Physician Chu, the female physician, and Chinger left, Yu Jie returned to the room again. Xiao Yanru had turned behind the screen again and stood in front of the bed with a very ashamed look on her face. Fifth sister, it seems that I hurt you. Fifth sister, don't worry. I will definitely find out who wants to hurt us. The 2 bottles of ointment were originally meant for the 2 of us, but I didn't expect that they had been drugged long ago. Xiao Wanru raised her lips sarcastically. At this time, Xiao Yanru still said that it had nothing to do with her and that it wanted to hurt her and herself. Did she really think that she had stayed in the Yuhui nunnery for a long time and only had a few people around her? She was so innocent that she couldn't even distinguish between good and bad. Big sister, please go back, she said coldly. Fifth sister? Xiao Yanru still wanted to explain, but Xiao Yujie stopped her. First miss, please go back. The Imperial physician said that our fifth miss should have a good rest. If she doesn't have a good rest, it may be more difficult for her to recover from her injury. Yujie said coldly and looked angrily at Xiao Yanru's face. If she had behaved like this in the past, she would definitely have been scolded by Xiao Yanru. But at this time, it was not the time to care about a maid's impoliteness. Xiao Yanru turned around helplessly and was about to leave with Shuqi, but Xiao Wanru's extremely cold voice came from behind. Big sister, not every time someone takes the blame. Xiao Yanru turned around and wanted to defend herself, but she saw that Xiao Wanru's eyes were still closed tightly. Yu Jie, who was standing beside her, looked at her vigilantly, as if she would take action as long as she made any abnormal movements. After calming down, Xiao Yanru said with a sad look, Fifth sister, time reveals a person's heart. You will know what kind of person I am. After saying that, her eyes turned red. She turned around and left in a hurry, as if she didn't want Xiao Wanru to find out her sadness. Yu Jie had been staring at her closely. How could she not notice her expression? At this time, the first miss was still pretending and really regarded her and her maid as fools. Xiao Yanru retreated to the door of the silence room and looked back at it. She gritted her teeth so hard that they sank into her flesh. She really underestimated Xiao Wanru. She had thought that Xiao Wanru was just a little girl who lived in the nunnery and seldom contacted others. Unexpectedly, Xiao Wanru was so cunning. Did she fall into Xiao Wanru's trap this time? If it wasn't for the fact that she didn't look like she was injured, she wouldn't have blown the matter up and even specially went to invite Imperial Physician Chu. The scene just now, although her grandmother would do as she wished and let someone else take the blame, she was afraid that she would also become a legend and even spread to the chambers of the Imperial harem. She had intended to leave a bad impression on Xiao Wanru in the eyes of the Imperial harem and the Emperor, but now she was the one who did it. Thinking of the good reputation that she had painstakingly gained over the years, Xiao Yanru gnashed her teeth with hatred. After returning to her room, she stood quietly in the room and looked at the window coldly. Shuqi shrank in the shadow of the door and did not dare to move at all, even daring to breathe heavily. Pack up. I'm going down the mountain. After a long while, Xiao Yanru said with her voice almost squeezed out from the root of her teeth, Miss, it's not appropriate for you to go down the mountain at this time. Shuqi was startled and murmured. The first miss went up the mountain in order to avoid the consort selection of the princes. What should she do if she went down the mountain at this time? Hurry up and get the carriage ready. Xiao Yanru waved her hand and slapped Shuqi hard in the face, which made her take a step back and hit her head heavily on the wall beside the door. She was in so much pain that tears immediately flowed out of her eyes. However, she did not dare to say a word and hurriedly nodded and ran out. Behind her, Xiao Yanru's red eyes were filled with madness. All her plans had to be put on hold because of this. Xiao Wanru, she would never let her go. She forced her to be unable to cultivate in the Yuhui nunnery to take refuge. When Great Elder Princess came to the door aggressively with her people, Madame of Duke Xing tried to stop her, but she failed. Ruan Great Elder Princess rushed to the courtyard of Old Madame of Duke Xing with her people. Someone had already reported it to Old Madame. After hastily washing up, Old Madame was helped to go to the outer room. At this moment, she saw Ruan Great Elder Princess rushing in with a group of people. After coming in, she did not speak to Old Madame and directly ordered her people to attack. The originally beautifully decorated room was immediately smashed into pieces. Old Madame was so angry that she could not even say a word. Her fingers trembled. Nanny Yu hurriedly patted her back so that she could breathe slowly. Seeing that the room was almost smashed, Ruan Great Elder Princess said to Old Madame in a cold voice, "You hurt my granddaughter again and again. Last time, you wanted to give her to an evil Taoist priest. This time, you directly used ointment mixed with something else to give Zhuozhua. Can the whole Duke Xing's mansion not tolerate such a little girl?" What do you mean?" Old Madame finally recovered. "Mother, in fact, I don't know who is at fault. The two servant girls were both injured on the mountain. When the eldest girl came down the mountain, she asked someone to fetch 2 bottles of ointment, but just now it was said that 1 bottle of ointment was mixed with something else. After 5th girl used it, her injury not only did not recover, but also worsened. Great Elder Princess was extremely angry and thought that our mansion intended to hurt 5th girl, but we did not know this in advance. Moreover, when the 2 bottles of ointment were sent up the mountain, we did not know who used which bottle was harmful. At this time, Madame of Duke Xing had already learned the cause of the matter from Nanny Sheng. She hurriedly explained to Old Madame, and then added a key sentence, "Mother, I think that someone wants to hurt the whole Duke Xing's mansion. I think someone wants to hurt the whole Duke Xing's mansion. I don't know if it's your political enemy or someone else." Duke Xing's political enemy wants to hurt 2 unmarried girls? Ruan Great Elder Princess sneered, raised her head and said, "I don't care what you want to say this time. If you can't give us a reason, we will fight in front of the Empress Dowager." After saying that, she turned around and left with her servants, without giving the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law any chance to explain. The people of Ruan Great Elder Princess's mansion went back the way they came. A large group of people went out of the gate of Duke Xing's mansion aggressively. Ruan Great Elder Princess got on her gorgeous carriage, which turned in the direction of Great Elder Princess's mansion and went to Great Elder Princess's mansion. Behind the carriage, the old maids and servant girls of Great Elder Princess's mansion followed in 2 rows. It seemed that they were not easy to deal with. When the pedestrians on the road saw such a large group of people passing by, they began to talk about it. A servant of Great Elder Princess's mansion fell behind, and she looked kind. A passerby could not help but stop her and ask what had happened just now. The people from the Great Elder Princess's residence came and then left. Something must have happened. The old maid who was stopped was eloquent. She told the matter angrily and specially said that it was proved by Imperial physician Chu in the palace. Then she hurried to catch up with Great Elder Princess's carriage. Chapter 595. What's going on? Chu Luiwei put down the wineglass in his hand and asked lightly. He sat under a restaurant, which was facing the street, and he could see and Great Elder Princess's carriage coming and then leaving in a hurry. Anyone would be shocked by such a large group of people. It is said that Great Elder Princess went to Duke Xing's mansion and smashed it because 5th Miss Xiao was poisoned. Xiao Cheesy reported. Poisoned? How could she be poisoned on the mountain? Didn't you say that she was fine yesterday? Chu Luiwei frowned and said, "Last night, when the secret guards returned to the mansion, they said that 5th Miss Xiao seemed to be unable to walk and should have really sprained her ankle, but they didn't say that she was poisoned. I don't know. It's just a rumor that after the 5th Miss sprained her ankle, the 1st Miss gave her a bottle of ointment, which was mixed with incompatible drugs. Not only would it not make the ankle recover, but it would also rot and fester. They are all guessing if it was really done by the first Miss Xiao. Xiao Qizi lowered his head and said. Chu Luiwei frowned more and more and showed a little displeasure on his face. Xiao Yinru had been getting more and more troublesome recently. He didn't know what she was thinking. How could she do such a thing at this time? Ask someone to check it out? Chu Luiwei stopped for a moment, waved his hand and said, Forget it. Don't check it out now. Let's see what happens first. He couldn't send too many of his people to the Yuhui nunnery. No one knew whose people were there. If Xiao Yenru hadn't said that she was sure about it yesterday, he wouldn't have rashly sent the secret guards there. Unexpectedly, he didn't find out that Xiao Wenru met Chu Qing in secret or passed a note. Instead, he found that Xiao Yenru secretly had an ambiguous relationship with Qiuyu. It seemed that Xiao Yenru also had some relationship with Chu Qing. The wine glass in his hand fell on the ground, and there was a little anger in his eyes. Xiao Yenru was the candidate for his wife. At this time, it was the critical time for him to choose a wife, so there was no room for any mistake. However, he inexplicably felt very tired, as if there was something in his throat that he couldn't swallow or spit out. She was just a woman. In fact, if Xiao Yenru didn't agree with him, he didn't have to choose Xiao Yenru. Although he admired Xiao Yenru's appearance, he cared more about Xiao Yenru's background and how much help Xiao Yenru's intelligence could give him. Xiao Qizi did not dare to speak and just stood there with his head down. His master liked the first Miss Xiao and had a good relationship with the first Miss Xiao in private. In Xiao Qizi's opinion, the first Miss Xiao would be his female master in the future. In fact, he wanted to speak up for his future female master, but His Highness's gloomy face made him dare not say a word. After hearing the news from the secret guards last night, His Highness didn't seem to be very happy when Miss Xiao was mentioned. Your Highness, third young master one has arrived. A guard reported at the entrance of the private room. Let him in. Chu Luiwei raised his head and said gently, with a smile on his gloomy face. The door was pushed open, and when Shichi walked in slowly, he stood in front of Chu Luiwei and bowed deeply to him. Your Highness. Yuan Qing, you don't have to be so polite. Sit. Chu Luiwei said with a smile and pointed to the chair opposite him. They had known each other since childhood, so there was no need to be too polite. Thank you, Your Highness. When Shichi cupped his hands and sat down opposite him with a smile. Xiao Qizi cleverly put down a set of tableware, poured a glass of wine for Wen Shichi, and stepped back to serve. Taste it and see how it is. Chu Luiwei said with a smile. When Shichi picked up the wine glass and took a sip. Then his eyes lit up and he said, Good wine. Of course it's good wine. This prince specially found it from the tribute wine. I know you like to drink this kind of wine, so I specially asked Father Emperor to reward me with this. There's only this much and there's only 5 pots of it. Bring 2 pots back later. Chu Luiwei laughed loudly, picked up the wine glass in his hand, and clinked it with Wen Shichi's. Bottoms up? I can't do that. There is only so much good wine, so I naturally have to taste it carefully. I shamelessly thank Your Highness for your good wine. Wen Shichi smiled and waved his hand leisurely. Then he picked up the wine and tasted it carefully. His smile became more and more gentle. There's no need to thank me. You were the one who helped this king previously. This king should be the one thanking you. Chu Luiwei said with a smile, took back the wine glass, took a sip, and nodded repeatedly. Although I don't like this kind of wine because it is a little too sweet, it is still excellent when I taste it carefully. Your Highness, it's just a piece of cake. I will always remember your great kindness to us. Wen Shichi said with a smile and took another sip of the wine in the glass. The wine was extremely sweet with a faint fruity taste. It was just like the wine in his memory. It seemed that he had drunk it before, but after tasting it carefully, he knew that he had actually not drunk it before. He himself found it strange that he would actually like to drink this kind of sweet wine, unlike most men who liked to drink stronger wine. Why do you mention it again and again? Yuan Qing worries too much. Did you see Great Elder Princess's carriage just now? Chu Luiwei smiled more gently. Of course I saw it. What's the matter with Great Elder Princess? When Shichi came over, he only saw the back of and Great Elder Princess's carriage, but he heard various discussions in the crowd, which were related to the two misses of Duke Xing's mansion. I heard that the fifth Miss Xiao sprained her ankle. The medicine she used was sent by Duke Xing's mansion. The first Miss Xiao and the fifth Miss Xiao each have a bottle, but the bottle used by the fifth Miss Xiao is mixed with other medicine. The bottle used by fifth Miss Xiao is mixed with other medicines. After taking it, not only will she not recover quickly, but her feet may also be rotten. Great Elder Princess was angry and went to Duke Xing's mansion to make a scene. Chu Luiyue said casually. There was the matter of the Baiyun Taoist temple before. Why is there another one now? Does Duke Xing's mansion really dislike the fifth Miss Xiao to such an extent? When Shichi frowned and said with doubt. Who knows? Chu Luiyue said lightly, but the fifth Miss Xiao is also very noisy. It seems that she has been very noisy since she came to the capital city. What do you mean, Your Highness? Although there was still a smile on Wen Shichi's face, his eyes became deeper. I've met the first Miss Xiao before. She is a rare gentle beauty with a good family background and an excellent reputation. She shouldn't do such a thing. What's more, my father also wants her to be selected. It's not good for her to spread such words at this time. Chu Luiyue said casually as if he was chatting. His purpose of coming here today was naturally to see Wen Shichi, and he did want to talk about the matter of the Baiyun Taoist temple. The matter of and Great Elder Princess just now made it easier for him to talk about this matter. Your Highness, do you want to choose her as your princess? Wen Shichi's heart moved, but his face showed no emotion. I think so, but now. Chu Luiyue said with a melancholy face, my father will not allow a girl with a bad reputation to be my princess, but I. Speaking of this, Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment, seeming to be a little embarrassed. He picked up the wine cup in his hand, drank it up, and then put it down heavily. He looked at Wen Shichi very sincerely and said, a gentleman is fond of a fair and graceful girl, and I can't be an exception. If the first Miss Xiao can be my princess, I will be very happy. Your Highness, if it were the first Miss Xiao in the past, it would not be a problem for her to be selected. At that time, you can report it to the Emperor, but now. Wen Shichi coughed in a low voice and said, I'm afraid it is not easy to deal with this matter. So I have to ask Yuan Qing for help. Chu Luiyue's face slightly blushed, showing a young man's admiration, and he said, the first Miss Xiao is really the person I admire, and I really don't want others to marry her. I have to marry her to be at peace. Wen Shichi lowered his head and was silent for a while, and then slowly nodded and said, since it is your Highness's idea, I will do it. Thank you, Yuan Qing. Chu Luiyue was overjoyed. He stood up and bowed deeply to Wen Shichi. Wen Shichi hurriedly stood up to support Chu Luiyue and said, Your Highness, you are too polite. I will never forget your great kindness to the Wen's mansion. Yuan Qing, it's just a piece of cake. It's nothing. Chu Luiyue waved his hand and said indifferently. It's just a piece of cake for your Highness, but for me, it's the life-saving grace of the whole family. Wen Shichi said with a serious face. Chu Luiyue had done the Wen's mansion a favor, and in fact, it was the Prime Minister who had done the Wen's mansion a favor. A few years ago, the Prime Minister was involved in a corruption case, and all the suspicious points pointed to the Wen's mansion. The Emperor was furious and wanted to confiscate the Wen's mansion. It was Chu Luiyue who took the lead to kneel in the Imperial study to plead for the Prime Minister, which delayed the matter a little. Later, he helped to investigate the matter and even made efforts in it again and again. Speaking of this matter, the Prime Minister had always been grateful to Chu Luiyue and asked the whole mansion to pay attention to the matter of Prince Yu. But after this matter, Chu Luiyue and the Prime Minister's mansion were not very close. They just met and greeted each other in the Imperial court. It was said that when the Emperor later asked about this matter, he only said that he had a good relationship with the third young master when since childhood. He knew that the Prime Minister would not do such a thing, so he intervened in this matter in case the loyal minister was framed. Since this matter had been settled, the rest had nothing to do with him. He mainly did it for the sake of the third young master Wen. At that time, the third young master Wen was just an idle scholar. Although he had always been famous for his talent, he was not an official. Moreover, he was young at that time, and Chu Luiyue and the third young master when had a good relationship, so no one used this matter to attack Chu Luiyue for forming a clique for personal gain. But no matter how long this matter had passed, the whole Prime Minister's mansion had always been grateful to Chu Luiyue. Even though the two families did not have close contact after that, this matter was deeply imprinted in the hearts of the whole Prime Minister's mansion. Then they talked about some idle things. Then a guard came to report that the emperor asked Chu Luiyue to enter the palace, so Chu Luiyue had to leave, leaving Wen Shiqi alone in the private room. Wen Shiqi picked up the wine at hand and carefully tasted it. He lowered his eyes, and the joy and anger in his eyes could not be seen clearly. He just quietly looked at the empty wine cup in his hand. A fair and graceful lady is a gentleman's dream? There was a very faint smile on his lips, very cold and very thin. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.